piece of the puzzle that will allow them to defeat Hercules. The attack began, thanks to the guy's power over fire. Just walking through the flame, he is able to destroy it. Finally, he found it. An Easter egg that only appears in B-ranked ogre settlements, red eyes and mountains of muscle. The most terrifying ogre that even heroes tried to avoid. He doesn't use magic, but on the foundation of his terrifying might, after all. In the future, he was nicknamed the Red-Eyed Huge Mage. A representative of the Guild of Your Ligia went to that man. He was stopped by a guard. He can't behave like this in such a place. The man asked him to move away. Everything was in order. He didn't know what had come over the representative, but he knew perfectly well what he was talking about. By activating a large blue ball around them, they were able to have a clear conversation. Since this wasn't their meeting room, he wondered if he would follow the rules of Asgard here. How can he talk about the rules when this happened to their main foundation, about actions in the name of humanity? He was blocked by the creation of all these so important rules. How dare he reproach him, but he would have reproached him if there was a chance that he would listen to him. But as he sees it, he has no chance that this will happen. The man was very angry. It was about Hercules. The representative had heard rumors that he would take part in the dungeon battle. This battle was supposed to be the last point in their victory. But Hercules, I wonder if Olympus is planning to terminate their agreement. The man thought it was he who sent the Hercules, but it seems that things are much worse. Was he going to send this guy to his death like this, because he thought the guy was just as interested in him? The man was almost ready to go, but there is no need to worry too much. His death is not part of the man's plans, including everything that happened. However, they made a pact with him. If he is in any danger, then the pact will immediately notify him about it. Olympus broke their agreement. It gives him a free hand. This is a very treacherous person. Did he foresee that everything would turn out like this? But the pact, he can't say that this is good, but it obviously won't ease their anxiety. But the premonition of something amiss does not leave the representative. Odin and Heimdall did not know that Odin's pact had already been broken by the fallen angel. It was a good idea to draw him out with fire, the guy thought. He found the reason why an anomaly like an ogre mage was here. This is the most important piece of the puzzle in the battle with Hercules. He was already overjoyed when the same monster appeared behind him. The guy started to run. This monster matched Hercules. Will he be able to defeat it now? The guy would like to avoid running into him while he is preparing for the battle with Hercules. But then it doesn't make any sense. He has to win. He was able to clear the gate and defeat the monster. The situation would have taken a turn for the worse if he managed to injure the guy. It would have been almost impossible to heal with potions before the dungeon battle. But what a relief. It looks like Mist defeated a monster. You can't always rely on it. Meanwhile, the guys were discussing that they hadn't seen a hair of this guy from that day. He must be preparing. Hercules will die of boredom at this rate. Can he at least enter the gate? The guy doesn't need any more problems created by him. He's one big and solid problem. He ignored Olympus' order and took part in the dungeon battle. Well, what is his fault? Why deliberately drain the pain when he can win so much? He is a fighter who despises such unreasonable things. Since a fighter despises unreasonable things, why did he send Theseus to the hospital? It's driving him crazy. The dungeon battle is about to start. He hid Theseus well, that he's the head of their group. Someone from Olympus should come and punish him. The one who ignored the direct order and the guy who helped him. Hercules told him, "You don't have to worry, no matter who gets sent, they'll protect the guy." In any case, Dark Horse doesn't look like he can take a single hit. He liked the girl who was with him, so don't miss this chance. I wonder how many opponents that guy has summoned, considering how much he looks down on the Dark Horse. For some reason, everything inside him is calling out in the presence of something big. Our hero went hunting again. The girl offered to keep him company. She was not in the best condition, and because of whom is she in such condition again? Thanks to this, she received a very useful skill that allows her to further increase her physical resistance and replenish her stamina. He asked her to repeat it. She hesitated. He told her to have a good rest. Today he will go down himself. If something happens, he can always contact her. He was on the street, so this was Alchemy Street. It should be here somewhere. This place with great magic power. This is it. This is the place. The guy finally found it. The guy apologized for the intrusion. He was greeted at a phone booth. He was Korean. It was very rare for a saleswoman to meet a foreigner. So what brought him? A special potion or an item for some nefarious business? He asked Park Yoo-jin if she was. The girl was a little angry. He showed up when she first opened, so he also knows her name. Her blacksmith skills aren't so stiff yet, are they? This was the youngest sister of the greatest blacksmith, the second blacksmith after him, and also the best alchemist, Hephaestus. That name would be given to her in the near future. A week later, as he had requested, she had melted the red ore he had given her, and coated her Muspelheim spear. And what she cared about now was whether he would tell her who he was. This item is inserted in his spear, and it's also an ore. It's the first time she meets them. He left her stupid brother and drove all the way to England to find this mineral. Even the people of Olympus don't have something like this. I asked him to tell me who he was, how he came up with the idea to search for these items in the first place. If she needs them, she should go back to Korea. It would be better for her to stay in Korea instead of staying here. If the two of them reunite, then with the support, he will become even stronger, since he is in Korea himself. This is complete nonsense. He wants to say that he can always get her materials that even Olympus doesn't have. How arrogant he is. But it sounds fun. She likes it. The raid was about to start. The hunters of all the nations present here were asked to get ready. They would have to fight all the people who were standing in front of them. Not really. There are people here who are not interested in winning the dungeon battle at all. They are only interested in winning by clearing the gate. That's a good thing, because the hunters aren't in the mood to kill each other. And there would be people who think like her, so he has to disagree. Hercules looked around and realized that they were some kind of Noonums and started to get aggressive when they didn't even enter the gate. But those worms were staring at him like that. Anyway, there's a dark horse over there. He pointed at the guy with his finger. He liked the look in his eyes. It was exciting, and all the participants were asked to enter the gate. The guy warned his partner that as soon as they entered, she should run away as far as possible. They entered the gate of Mount Catalog. The girl did not understand what was happening. The guy warned that first you need to escape. She gave the half-dying man a potion, but still nothing helped. She did not understand what was happening around. It was Demetrius. This attack was much stronger than the last huge monster. He remembered the girl who was hanging around with the dark horse. He is very happy that he decided to take part. He was trying to attack and kill the girl. What an unreal destructive force it was. She fended off the attacks, but he still didn't give up and continued. It was the terrifying power of her bones, already bursting at the seams. But that was her training and managing to block his attacks. Now, it was her turn. The monster had heard that she was one of those hunters who didn't get a title, so she was honored to experience the attack of a wild beast. Their partner didn't run up and tell them to retreat, but as soon as they entered the gate, a leg explosion occurred and the hunters were hit and killed. It was a trap, so Demetrius really didn't do it at all. But on the contrary, after entering the gate, they immediately attacked him, and this enraged him. And he began to run amok. So he foresaw this, and so he told the girl to run. It seems that what happened there was only a third of its end. It was lucky that she did not have to experience the attack that she was going to use. Now their task is to survive in this A-rank gate. The monsters are in it, the Castalian lions. After all, Demetrius is not their only enemy. His assistant Skull did not find the hunters in the vicinity. He tamed him to continue to watch the perimeter around them. If he starts smelling fried, then immediately return. The girl asked him to wait and buried all the dead. He did not limit her in this, because his assistant controls the situation. But she is really wonderful. Buries the bodies of her enemies. The guy said that there are 2 ways to win this battle. Defeat the boss or focus and take part in this mess. What would he like? Boss, it will undoubtedly be difficult to defeat him together, that's true. But isn't Demetrius stronger? What will they do? Do they even have a plan? First, they would deal with 2 hares at once. The skull said that 3 hunters with skull tattoos were not far away. So that was who had enraged Demetrius as soon as they entered the gate. They will now face the hunters. Wouldn't it be better for them to just run away? Usually this is exactly the case. But now he has a plan. Hercules followed the fiery trail of dark horses. But this is still what kind of incomprehensible people tied to a tree. They probably had something to do with Borgin, his partner said. This is a shadowy organization with roots in North Africa. They know how to inspire terror, the sale of unclean things, and the sale of children to boot. These guys were the ones who ambushed him at the gate. They begged for mercy. He has nothing against the guys who do everything for the sake of victory. Moreover, he is one of them, at least as long as they follow the rules. Ambushing people entering the gate was strictly forbidden in the dungeon's Code of War rules. Next time, they will stick to the rules, but only in another life. Hercules has dealt the strongest blow. A certain trampling monster approved of the action of this Demetrius, of course. The guy who was standing next to him said that he didn't even follow the rules, even the rules of Olympus. And moreover, beat Theseus to a pulp. It seemed to the guy that the bully should say the same words to himself. But as soon as the bully turned around, he didn't see anything wrong with his actions, because this dark horse turned out to be such a funny guy. Can that guy really regard it all as a solid gift? As soon as both of them turned around, they noticed a huge army coming at them. The bully couldn't believe it, because really these are the accomplices of the same guy, because apparently, he's not the only one who got up like this. He's really starting to like it all. In a few seconds, the entire squad was already defeated. The guy thought that they had a terrible hobby. Really, the bully does not want to use weapons at all. We understand that George disliked Demetrius not only because he was incredibly strong, but also because Demetrius was just a nut. He was a warrior with an endless thirst for battle and victory. And when he entered a battle, he immediately became uncontrollable. So you could say that George was just worried the Demetrius collision, as well as the dark horse. Once again, Ying-chan and our protagonist appeared in front of us, both of whom felt the incredible magic power around them. They should have been wary of the boss. But at the same time, they noticed that there were other hunters in front of them, but they were not enemies, because Jun Kyung did not feel bloodlust in the air. Everyone they met could not understand because really before them was the same dark horse that everyone was talking about. But time passed too much. They were waiting for him to wait, because didn't Asgard send him? Of course, at the same time, the main character said that this was so. So the residents whispered a little and introduced themselves that one of them was Inev, who came from the Nile. They were all waiting for our main protagonist to help. Well, as you saw and understood, he is not at all aware of the matter. Because for a long time it was decided that this dungeon battle would end with the victory of Asgard. Young Kyung couldn't understand, because were they really talking about the Egyptian Nile? Was this a world guild like Asgard or Olympus? But those guys said that they don't know if this whole problem was caused by Olympus itself. But everything became much more complicated with his appearance there. That's why all the residents were waiting for our main character to guarantee victory. Of course, Young Kyung thought about it, but the villagers immediately said that they would help him. So they suggested that they quickly go and destroy the boss, because it would certainly be difficult for two people to fight against him. But as soon as these words were spoken, our hero said only that he would deal with Demetrius himself. Of course, all the residents were shocked by this information, but the only thing that was spinning in our character's head was that winning just by defeating the boss would mean that he was no longer a puppet. Ying-chan couldn't understand why everyone was so surprised and enthusiastic, but the main characters said that the victory of Asgard in this battle was originally a foregone conclusion, so their plan was to win by helping them defeat the boss. Ying-chan said that avoiding the fight with that person and defeating the boss would be a guaranteed victory. So Young Kyung already thought that she would object to him, but Ying-chan just smiled and said that if our protagonist wants it, then you can go together, because they have a plan and you need to follow just him. Our main character smiled, but the other person, as well as everyone else, started to leave one by one. They thought that he should just sit out, not get any injuries. Everyone thought that our protagonist was a complete madman. They thought that Asgard was wrong to call him for help, but not the residents. Vijio the resident still thought that he could handle it. They said that the boss is a lion, something like the ones they met earlier, but much bigger and stronger. Of course, they won't be fighting Demetrius, so just share the information. Now it's just the two of them, just like they started from the beginning. As soon as they moved away a little and the evening began outside, the residents thought that, of course, everything would be difficult. But looking back at what they have already experienced, we can safely say that our protagonist is incredibly strong, because the rising star of Korea, who appeared out of nowhere and even among all their strongest hunters, it was he who protected the main gate of the River Rhine. It was this super rookie who single-handedly defeated the entire Northern Army Guild that was quite strong. Of course, if we evaluate the potential of our protagonist, then it is not inferior to the leaders of shadow organizations, so everyone stayed away to more accurately assess his abilities. The man was incredibly inspired because he wanted to see the result that he would not get. It was at this moment that our main character had already entered the abode of that very lion. Under the pressure of the same lion, the level of skills of our heroes decreased. The resistance also decreased. But the achievement, one who resisted pressure, was obtained, because the resistance of our protagonist was too great, so his skills remained at the same level. It was at this moment that Young In, our Young Kyung, and the Skull all launched their attack right on that lion. The lion was very big. Young In knew that she couldn't handle it, so at the same time our Young Kyung came to help, distracting the lion. The Skull also continued its air support. The lion was furious. As soon as they were together, our hero asked Young In not to overdo it so much, because we must not forget about the second phase, at the beginning of which Demetrius will immediately appear. We flash back to Demetrius as well as George, who has already finished with the entire army, who just couldn't contain all his anger anymore. George was terrified because how could his companion have already gone mad from bloodlust? Could it even be that our protagonist knew about Demetrius' weakness, thus sending a lot of people to them? Of course, George thought that this could not be the case, since even Olympus did not know about this feature. George asked for Demetrius' answer, so that at the same time the goon's eyes returned to normal. The boy begged his exuberant companion to stop going into such a rage, but Demetrius thought that there was no need to worry about it, because the latter believed that he had become stronger, and would never lose his head again due to bloodlust. However, as soon as Demetrius said that, it gave George a bit of confidence, because the person in front of him was actually an S-class hunter. We flash back to our hero, where we can see that Young In thought that they had succeeded, because the boss did not move. So at the same time, the lion just took and divided into several parts. Enev couldn't believe that both of our heroes had just moved on to the second stage, even without their help. But he was more surprised that our protagonists were acting too correctly, despite the fact that they were fighting against this monster for the first time. Young In turn, began to feel the demonic energy, but Jung Kyung said that they were doing everything right. However, our hero also understood that they did everything in time, because it was at this moment that Demetrius was supposed to appear, who appeared very effectively. He breathed a willingness to accept the battle. George was also standing behind him, but a lion that tried to attack Demetrius from behind was immediately destroyed with a single blow. Young Kyung noticed that the same monsters as the lion were standing in front of him, and Demetrius noticed that the black horse was also standing in front of him now. Demetrius was about to start the battle, but our hero was smarter. He just started running away together with Young In. Demetrius just lost his temper. He couldn't believe that the person he wanted to fight so much now just started running away. Demetrius was completely furious, running at the same speed as the lion that was next to him. Both protagonists understood that the lion did not attack Demetrius, because only they dealt damage to him. Jun Kyung just asked me to run after him. At this moment, all the people who left our protagonist at the very beginning were shocked again, because they saw a very scary picture in front of them. They noticed how two of the strongest opponents, Demetrius and Leo, were just running after our heroes. The lion at one point just jumped on the crowd of hunters, which caused a commotion. He continued to produce more and more spears, and the lion by that time had completely lost his mind. Demetrius continued to deal with all the enemies that approached him with the help of ordinary bare hands. He liked everything, but our protagonist already managed to hide. He understood that they managed to buy a little time, and also got a certain thing. Jung-in asked what it was, but Young Kyung only said that it was a secret weapon. He leaned it against the spear, which looked more like a crystal, so the notification signaled that his spear was slightly stronger for a short period of time. However, the dragon blood stone had absorbed the red ore. What on earth was going on? Of course, Jun Kyung isn't. He knew the effect of absorbing the red ore, the dragon blood stone. Jung Ying thought that it looked rather dangerous, but they still knew that this was their only way to win. Young Kyung threw his spear straight at the boss, which immediately hit its head. Our protagonist realized that this was the perfect opportunity. Of course, Demetrius thought it was his fault, but when he turned around, he saw another spear flying at him. He thought it was going to hit him, but George protected his companion by parrying the spear with a blow. George looked to the side and once again told his companion to finally get a weapon. Demetrius finally realized that he really should have, so George just smiled and said that the dark horse spear looked different somehow. It was definitely superimposed with some kind of spear. Demetrius thought that this was a mockery of him because he could not believe that anyone could even hurt him. He decided that now he would definitely deal with the dark horse, because now they would definitely deal with a real beast. George also realized that it was time to go into battle, because he noticed that many people looked down on him, just like Ying Chang. Ying Chang was also ready to accept the fight, so at the same time she rushed into the fight but just couldn't get in. George wanted to counterattack. This battle was actually fierce. Two masters fought. George thought that he would win, because he had much more experience. But despite his confidence, everything went wrong, because he forgot about the flying skull that hit his hand, and this was the right moment to strike. Ying Chan didn't make her kick, but just ran away. George was shocked because why did she hit the ground? And the skull shot at him with sticky and sweet. After all, were these really monster pheromones? Just then, George was surrounded by a crowd of small lions. He was very surprised because his opponents caught him. By that point, we can see that our protagonist was very downcast. As he watched Demetrius continue to fight fiercely against the lion, he was able to resist the boss. How strong was he anyway? However, the only good news was that Young Kyung saw that his girlfriend was behind him, that she managed to make it even with the help of the skull. Young Kyung also said that they needed to finish everything quickly. But by this time, Demetrius was just in a rage. He just couldn't control himself. Right now, Hercules was in berserk mode. He realized that it was as planned, but they had to stop the lion. There was no need for them to kill the berserker. They only needed to strike while the berserker was in this state. Demetrius continued to enjoy the battle. He was rushing at the lion, but he noticed our hero in front of him, who now offered to play with him. The berserker was very happy with this suggestion, so in a second, an incredible amount of dust soared up. Mana was everywhere. The berserker thought that his attack couldn't be blocked by any shield at all. He was completely furious. All people believe that our hero is just a madman or just knows how to resist the power of Demetrius. However, as soon as the berserker wanted to strike, he noticed that our protagonist was not left in his place. The berserker was even angrier, but when he looked up, he noticed that Jung Kyung was already preparing his next attack on him. Of course, our protagonist thought that he would succeed, but the berserker still managed to hit him with a swing from the blind zone, throwing him back. The berserker simply couldn't understand after all. Is this newbie that everyone is talking about so weak and stupid? He begged to be amused even more, missing the fun he was currently experiencing. Of course, our main character felt the full power of his opponent, so he turned to him and asked how he was feeling. The berserker thought that he must be joking, because how could such a weak attack even injure him? But then I noticed that his body became very heavy. Most likely, there was poison on the spear of our main character. Everyone understood that red ore gives life to ogre magicians, but this ore had two names, Emancipation Ore and Madness Ore. It was at this moment that Demetrius just lost his temper. He began to scream furiously. Once again, we take a closer look at the red ore, which gives regular ogres more power than bosses. It was she who forced the huge ambitions of humanity to start studying this ore. Animals turn into monsters, and monsters gain powers. Thus, it acquired its first name, the Emancipation Ore. I didn't have to wait long, and soon experiments on hunters began, red ore increasing the potential of hunters. But since people literally rolled to death from insanity, soon its use was completely prohibited. As a result, the red ore received its second name, the Madness Ore. Our hero could not understand, because what kind of unimaginable power was in front of him? What was this strange feeling that kept coming to visit him? George, on the other hand, who ran away from the lions, couldn't understand what our protagonist had done at all. But Jung Kyung didn't want to answer. All he said was that if George got any closer, he would definitely die. George didn't care, so he rushed into the fight, and our hero knew that everything was happening again. Because in the future, the same thing would happen as now. Demetrius lost his mind in his madness. A battle broke out between our hero and George was sure that once Demetrius went mad, only he would be able to bring him to his senses. But our hero was still sure that this was not the case. He continued to persuade George to stop because he had a plan. George backed down, but he didn't see the point in trusting the dark horse. Jung Kyung, in turn, only said that it would take him about 5 minutes. He promised that he would hold the berserker for 5 minutes. Of course, George didn't believe it, but there was no time to decide, since the berserker had already attacked them. Of course, the lion also contributed, and the skull begged for time. Of course, after that, George let out a sigh and said that he understood what Jun Kyung was getting at. so he decided to help. Our main character, in turn, only remembered that the time limit for instability of red ore is only 5 minutes, so if they hold out, they will definitely win the war. All the hunters who had been fighting all this time also began to feel an ominous aura. They noticed that Hercules was approaching them, who was destroying everything in his path with his blows, and now our protagonists, along with George, were trying to buy time. Young Ying, as soon as Moose Time, immediately decided to take the chance and attack the berserker, but this time it repelled the attack. Everyone thought that Hercules was simply irresistible, but still everyone decided that they would not participate in a fight with him, because they still did not want Miura. They did not even know that the war at the dungeon had descended into a sub-Yun quagmire. However, Inev only thought that the red ore was to blame. He definitely needed to step in. While the lion was still being beaten up by Hercules, Young In was also still trying to hit it at least once. George also kept trying to reach out to Hercules to get him to recover. But it was to no avail because his strike just didn't make any sense. His sword absorbed so much energy that even George's clothes were torn apart. Hercules wanted to kill George, but our main character saved him. George didn't know how much longer these long 5 minutes would last. They were all very exhausted, but the experiments absolutely showed that the maximum limit of the effect of red ore lasts for 5 minutes. So why didn't the effect get exhausted at all? Of course, while they were thinking about it, Hercules found them, and the villagers started trying to help. They realized that our heroes needed their help. Young In was already exhausted, but she kept telling herself that she could continue. Our hero understood that his girlfriend would definitely not last long, but if he were even stronger, he would help to cope with everything. However, as soon as he thought about it, a window flashed up indicating that the blood absorbed by the dragon bloodstone had reversed its flow, and our protagonist started coughing up blood, causing Young In to worry. The percentage began to grow, but our hero began to scream in pain. He changed. He began to light up the entire battlefield with his new aura. He realized that it was all the fault of the mana flow, which was why Berserk continued to maintain the aura's effect. Young Kyung also decided to infuse this aura into his legs and charged into the fight a second later. Young Ying wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Our main character had already rushed straight to the lion's mouth and also hit him several times. It was after this moment that the lion was killed. Our hero received Purest Water of the Forest, the achievement Opponent of the Beast, as well as many achievements just for that I was able to defeat this boss. His level went up, however. A notification alerted him that his patron's words had not been delivered. The whole body of our hero was simply being destroyed, and the warning said that our protagonist should get rid of all demonic energy as soon as possible. We understand that this is an unimaginable and huge flame that was bursting out of Young Kyung's body. It was spreading, and it seemed to be swallowing up the entire mountain where they were. The flames that were shooting out from our Young Kyung strangely worked for the other people who were around him. All of them felt that this flame was draining their mana at all. They looked back and now noticed that Demetrius continued his defeat, now with our protagonist instead of Leo. The strange thing was that now our hero was on an equal footing against Hercules. Hercules, even in the course of this battle, lost an arm, which after a moment grew back. George noticed a very strange thing. The body of his friend just regenerates at an incredible speed while using a huge amount of mana. What happens to a dark horse anyway, if even Demetrius can't stand it? Young In was horrified. But George noticed that our protagonist's regeneration is much faster. Demetrius could not stand still. His thirst for battle was at its maximum. He was ready to once again clash in battle, while using the rampage of the beast. All of this may end badly because his arm has not yet fully recovered. However, our hero's flame, as well as his spear, was so charged that after the blow, everyone wanted to think that he had defeated Demetrius. That's right. As soon as the dust from the battle cleared, we could see that Hercules had already fallen to his knees in front of Young Kyung, whose body was already wanting to cease to exist. The red ore also affected the dragon bloodstone, the survival instincts, the desire to kill, the blood of the monsters he had been hunting all along, and the blood of that Catalan lion, all mixed with demonic energy to form a hybrid crystal. Just like the red ore test subject mentioned earlier, Young Kyung will throw out everything inside of him and die. Jun Kyung wanted to kill Demetrius, but his spear was stopped by some girl who ordered our hero to prostrate before her. Her order was immediately obeyed. The body of our character was already sitting on his lap. Everyone was shocked by this appearance of the girl, and George even called her Athena. She couldn't understand why she couldn't leave anyone alone, and why there was an incredibly strange man in front of her, who everyone seemed to call a dark horse. She looked at Jung Kyung once again and realized who was responsible for all the changes inside the gate. And she was very surprised that he was able to push through her shield. He embraced absolutely the entire mountain, and also began to steal the mana of all the flora and fauna using sinister flames. At first, of course, she thought that such a person was just lucky to get to Asgard, but no one would have thought that he would be able to defeat Hercules in pure strength. She realized that this person was dangerous. She wanted to end him at the same moment. She took out her spear and was about to pierce through his heart, but by this time, a voice appeared that stopped her. It was Songgu. Athena couldn't figure out what her friend was doing there, but this question also crossed Songgu's mind about her. Athena realized that he had followed her lightning bolt, but what annoyed her more was that he was now just blocking the path to Young Kyung with his body. She yelled at him to get out of the way, but Songgu replied that if she killed our hero, he would take it as a declaration of war on Asgard. Athena was just already distraught, because was this guy really so important to him that Sunggu was ready to declare war? She just couldn't believe that Sunggu even had something that he cherished. But as soon as she said that, Enev came over and asked her to step in. Of course, Athena knew about the leader of the Egyptian group, so at the same time, he said what Neil himself had asked for the protection of the Dark Horse. Athena was once again shocked, but at the same time, Enev took out the Eye of Osiris, which proved his right to represent wishes. So he once again asked for this request to be fulfilled. There was a suggestion that soon the Gate of the Buddha was destroyed, and our antagonist was endowed with a fallen angel, resistance to demonic energy, purification. Our hero was even able to acquire a skill without the help of a patron and get the achievement, one who makes his own way. The mana flow skill has been created. After a long time, we see a building in front of us, where Jung-in is sitting waiting for our hero to wake up. As soon as she noticed that he had opened his eyes, she was extremely happy, her eyes filled with tears, and Young Kyung noticed that his body was just in an incredibly terrible state. His vocal cords were also not working. Jung-in decided to call someone, and our protagonist was left with only his thoughts. He noticed that the entire building resembled that of the Knights of the Round Table. Of course, not all strong hunters create organizations to control the world from the shadows, but there were already many secretly created organizations with more noble ideals. The Knights of the Round Table were one of them. However, even if it was the case that the Knights of the Round Table didn't lift a finger, they just hid their heads and acted from the shadows. All these thoughts haunted Jung Kyung, as his body was already in a very bad state. His legs wouldn't move, his ligaments wouldn't work, and even his familiar was asleep. As soon as he opened his status window, he noticed that his level had almost dropped to 50, but fortunately, his dropped stats were only a temporary effect from the red ore. But the most important thing was that he had obtained skills that were not inferior to the unique ones. He hoped that he would continue to go shoulder to shoulder with the fallen angel. As soon as he woke up a little, Sunggu came into his room. Sunggu apologized because he couldn't do anything to help. As our main character's case is a rare one, no one knows how to treat the effects of red ore. But when he looked at Jung Kyung, he realized that there was nothing to worry about. Our character was happy to be taken care of so much. So Sunggu just asked us to focus on the recovery. As soon as Sunggu left the room, he was surrounded by many hunters who continued to discuss the strength of our main character. They wanted to study it, but Sunggu claimed that Asgard sees no reason to reveal the abilities of any of the hunters. So it's better to ask Olympus to explain because really they don't know. Involved in the whole situation? Wasn't Olympus moved by the secret agreement between them and Asgard? Of course, Asgard would have to win, so the hunters would have to act accordingly. Sunggu claimed that if they didn't know beforehand that Hercules would break all the agreements, they wouldn't have sent Young Kyung there. He made it clear that his hunter with the nickname Dark Horse did what needed to be done. He asked Olymp to explain himself. Of course, the girl still said that they had never encountered such a case, that the hunter was able to absorb the mana of other hunters with the blue flame. So they asked to transfer the Dark Horse to them, because otherwise Olympus is ready to start a war against Asgard. Songgu was very angry at first, but then he decided that he needed to be careful. He started to say that Jun Kyung's ability was actually unknown, but it was always the hunters who were dangerous, so it wasn't surprising at all. Until then, until everything appeared, all the abilities were unknown, and the abilities of hunters to this day inspired horror and danger. Consequently, Olympus, trying to start a war on such an occasion, are simply inexperienced and unable to make a proper decision. Athena was angry again, saying that every problem she had in her life was because of Songgu, who was coming from somewhere. Songgu asked me not to say anything more, because he also hoped that they wouldn't meet again, but our protagonist will continue to train to use the mana flow. He could sense the mana flows and use all of them. He had managed to understand all of this while observing the mana movements inside Demetrius, so in order to achieve the same strength as him, then Young Kyung goosed up all the mana surrounding it. If he used it to attack, then of course the impact would be many times stronger, so he decided to use the mana flow for his own recovery. Of course, as soon as he used this skill, his body started coughing up blood because not all the blood was human, but with an admixture of dragon blood. He wanted to use the flow to recover, but something was hindering him. It was a metal ball that didn't allow him to do anything. By this point, we could see that George was training hard with Young-in. Young-in tried to get her own way. She didn't want to be distracted by meaningless speeches, but even so, she still fell under George's attack. She was motivated by the fact that she was useless during the battle with the lion, and the fact that she didn't have a title only meant that her patron still hadn't recognized her. She hadn't been able to protect Jung Kyung, so it was at this moment that Prince Charming looked at her with pity. She couldn't believe that she was receiving such words from a patron. Even though they were about the same level, but our main character was still several heads higher than her in abilities. She knew that if she didn't get stronger, she definitely wouldn't be able to be called our character's companion, so as soon as George turned around, he noticed that Young-in already wanted a new round. George noticed that Young-in's eyes were the same as his own, reflecting the desire to protect the other person. He knew that she would definitely become much stronger in time, she just had to. After another round, he went into the ward and talked about how Young-in was just incredible, because she was developing so fast, and she reminded him of Demetrius in the past. George's gut also told him that he was enjoying it, even though his friend was asleep. He asked him to get up because lying in bed is not at all becoming, but dark. The horse is already awake. As soon as Sung-gu entered our protagonist's room, he noticed that he was already able to move, and as always, our young Kyung was full of surprises. As soon as Sung-gu asked about the lightning bolt, our hero immediately replied that it was a certain sacred artifact of Olympus, which was endowed with the power of Zeus. Sung-gu confirmed this information, because there are not many abilities in the world that can be compared to the lightning of Zeus himself. Such skills have always been studied. Our character said that it was just like Sung-gu's Bifrost ability. Sung-gu was shocked, but our protagonist asked for an explanation because there is something to say. Once Sung-gu realized that the conversation was going to be serious, he decided to go outside where they couldn't be overheard. As soon as they appeared in a place of incredible beauty, Sung-gu said that this is exactly his sphere of influence, and also asked, after all, is our hero a prophet or a regressor? Young Kyung, in turn, said that he had read a book about him, as well as his friend. It was a book about someone who was known as the Demon King. All of this struck Sung-gu. So is our main character really asking us to believe everything he said? Could it be that Sung-gu was the one who killed him? But our protagonist was only told that this is not true at all, because he thinks that he knew that after that very action, everything would follow differently. It was definitely not a lie. Sung-gu had no choice but to believe it, and our protagonist knew that at this time the Bifrost was confirming his words. Young Kyung also said that not everything is written in King yet, because only the beginning is written there, but the future depends only on his actions. Most of the information about the upcoming was lost. Everything that our hero knows at the moment is a small part. Bifrost also confirmed his words. So Sung-gu asked about his intentions, to which our character replied without hesitation that he wanted to change the hellish future that he lived in, and from that moment on, a lot of things would go down a different path. At the same time, we realize that Bifrost is not able to distinguish between lies and truth, but is only able to accept whether the speaker's words harm Heimdall. Young Kyung couldn't say everything, because changing the future was definitely not his goal. It was already evening. Inev was watching our main character through the window, but Young Kyung couldn't believe that Inev had entered the territory of the Round Table just to check on his condition. Did something really happen? Inev apologized for his rudeness, but he still took a big risk by going there, so he wants to ask something from the Dark Horse. Of course, at first, our main character thought that Inev used the power of veto to protect him, so it's in the best interest of our main character to help Tom. It was at this point that Inev asked him to go to the Nile, and that is exactly what he is asking. All this shocked our hero, because not only the head himself came to ask him, but also knelt in front of him. It was all too strange. Why do you need this at all? Inev was noticed, so there was no time to speak. The only thing he said was that it was all related to the red ore. As he bounced away, our protagonist began to realize that the red ore phenomenon was probably studied in Egypt, even though no hunter knew anything about it. While he was standing in front of the window, Young In ran into the room, who was very excited about the state of our protagonist, but he only replied that everything was fine. At least it was. Young In didn't understand anything. So our hero said that he had just made it to the top of the cliff, but everything inside him said that a much higher peak was waiting for him. We, in turn, understand that the Round Table meeting was completed. The outbreak of war was recognized as the fault of Athens, which was not surprising because it was Olympus that violated all agreements. So now they must bear responsibility for the outbreak of war. They were about to go home with Young In, but George came out in their direction. His aura was scary. Young In thought that he would attack them, so she asked our main character to stand behind him. Of course, Jun Kyung knew it wasn't a big deal, because even though George looked like this, he definitely wanted to talk. Young In allowed the conversation to continue, so George approached our hero and said that he was very surprised, because the fact that Young Kyung was on his feet and Hercules wasn't was very strange. George expressed all his gratitude, because he had learned a lot from their battle, but he was sure that Demetrius would definitely not lose next time. George realized that there was no point in talking about it anymore, so he asked our main character to tell him what Young In had said, that she had a lot of potential and needed to get stronger, and that she was trying to earn a Titus. He told her that her patron's reputation was too important, so she needed to understand what her patron was like. Of course, Jun Kyung joked with her, saying that she should become a prince on a white horse. As soon as George turned away, our hero called him and told him that Demetrius would become a much bigger monster, that he would certainly get back on his feet first, but our main character is not a person who leaves things unfinished, so he really hopes that next time they will fight on the same side. George was excited, and he knew it would have been great if it had been like this, but Hercules was really in a bad state. We see our main character again. He continues to throw small stones into a certain lake. After another such throw, he heard someone's voice, the voice of someone who was very annoyed by these actions. There was a girl who couldn't understand how he even knew how to find her, and our protagonist realized that Merlin was standing in front of him, which surprised her. However, to all her further words, Jung Kyung indicated that he was the true head of the Round Table meeting. Merlin, I decided to ask who was standing in front of her, even though I already knew who was standing in front of her, that it was a dark horse. But what was he trying to achieve by making her lose her temper? Merlin took on his new look, a guy with a strange glow in his eyes, and said that our hero should have known that he wasn't the type to make anyone angry. But it was at this point that our protagonist said that he was actually a person who knew where Excalibur was right now. Merlin was shocked, but at this point we see Young In again, as well as our main character, sitting at the airport. Young-in noticed that Young Kyung now had a certain necklace around his neck. She thought that he was dating a girl, that he was hiding a bunch of girls in England. She was disappointed in him. But by this point, Song-gu had walked up to them, dispelling the aura of misunderstanding. However, just as they were about to leave, a certain guy stopped Young Kyung and said that Merlin had asked him to repay the debt for the necklace when he returned. When the hero with Hyung and the girl were about to leave, he was asked to stop, a certain man. He said that Merlin asked to give him a message. She said that the guy is obliged to repay the debt for the necklace. The man asked how he already knew about Merlin. They made a deal. This necklace is from her. He almost died because of it. Facing them all face to face is too much for him, but he really needed this necklace, so he had to step over it a little. They got on a plane, a guy and a girl flying next to each other. She still doesn't understand something about George. Despite the fact that they were enemies, he helped her in training and even gave her advice. If Hercules had done to him what he did to him, she is sure that she would have been consumed with a desire for revenge. But the way he helped her and the way he ended up treating the guy, she simply does not understand the nobility of high-ranked hunters. The guy replied that it must be all intuition, most likely. He just realized that the hero was not going to deal with Hercules. Their plane will soon land, and all passengers were asked to go to their seats and fasten their seatbelts. At the exit, they were met by reporters. They greeted the dark horse that defeated Hercules. The guy did not understand what they were talking about. They were told that Hercules challenged him to a duel, and he defeated him. But why didn't the man tell him about it earlier? Because it was a surprise. Didn't he want it? But glory, he was posing and passed by the photographers. People did not understand how he was able to defeat such a monster, after all. Not even a year has passed since he became a hunter. The whole of Europe shudders at just his name, when the eyes of the whole world are riveted to the real era of heroes. The hunter who attracts almost all the attention is definitely a dark horse. Next, we see a guy standing with a girl. She asks about his future plans. He has too many things to do, such as repairing his inventory. The spear almost fell into disrepair due to the dragon bloodstone and the side effects of the red ore. Hyunmoo never came to his senses. And on top of all that, he has business to attend to in the Nile. But the first thing he has to do is move, since he dreamed of his own house from an early age. Unless moving is the most urgent thing, which is fine, but it doesn't look like he's going to need her help anytime soon. And there's something she needs to tell him. From now on, she will act on her own. The guy was surprised. Protecting the gate with him was a fun and very valuable experience for her. But after the words said by George, she needs to find something that she can do on her own. The girl left. Apparently, she finally began to reveal herself. Very soon, she will become much stronger. The hero got a call from Kim Sung-young. The head of the association is calling his A. Tomorrow morning, he will pick him up to escort him. He forgot about the most important thing, about Odin. At this time in London, George talked with Demetrius. What happened to him when he came to his senses? Why is he acting like a guilty person, seeing a defeated hunter for the first time? He had never lost before. Something had changed. Before he was always on pins and needles, always aggressive. But now his soul seemed to have found peace. Hercules replied that apparently the guy originally didn't plan to be their enemy. His eyes changed to red, no wonder. He completely mastered his madness and can now use this power without side effects. It seems that our hero gave this gift to him on a platter. Hercules will become a monster, much stronger than before, and will certainly get back on his feet. The guy hoped that they would be on the same side and fight shoulder to shoulder. The girl fought with monsters, wore different punches. A monster appeared in front of her. It's been 3 days since it came from a monster-like guy. It feels like she's facing Hercules again. Prince Charming has restored her life points a bit. She's barely holding on even with the support of her patron. But this guy is already at the limit of his strength. The monster stepped on the attack. The girl deftly dodged, injuring him in the process. She doesn't quite understand what it means to save the princess, but anything that threatens her can just be killed, right? She dealt him a crushing blow, from which the monster fell to the ground, just like herself. The girl lay senseless. The potion ran out, even if they did not have the strength to even lift a finger. That's how she will die together with him. At this moment, a black warrior approached her and offered her a potion. Prince Charming praised her for her merits, and also bestowed a title, revealing her real name and congratulating her on approving the title Siegfried. When she woke up, it was her former partner standing in front of her. She was still in the gate. Her body feels much better. It's quite a strange feeling. He might have gotten the elixir from somewhere, but he's asking for his congratulations. He was pretty close to stealing this kill from her, but he just thought, he's not some monster to do that, eh? She thanked him, because thanks to that, she was finally able to get her title. The girl saved the princess. Ogre Prince Siegfried sponsors the Ogre Mage Princess, and also defeats the Ogre Mage. A certain ray descended from the sky. It reduced the monster. Now it was hers. It's something like a black warrior. The guy congratulated her. Now that she has a title, she became a real hero. Did she have time to get attached to him while they were fighting? He's pretty cute. The guy asked to protect the princess of Prince Charming and asked if the girl has already chosen a name for her subordinate. Not yet, then this little man said Goongs. The girl hoped that he was just joking and wanted to say that the princess, but he also continued to repeat. Prince Charming smiled satisfactorily. Fallen Angel laughed at this absurd situation, girl. Won in a one-on-one duel against the Ogre Mage. Jun Yingchang is not far behind the Black Warrior. The guy was here for what it usually takes her a day or two to clear the gate, but he was starting to worry, since it had already been 3 days since she'd been inside. He also has something else to say, but first they have to deal with this big guy who came out on them. She's protecting the gate. First, you need to make sure that she's dealt with everyone to one. The heroic power that she gained by acquiring the title overwhelms the mana flowing all over her body. The boss of the ogre village, a 2-headed ogre, is a great opponent to test her hero powers. The girl stepped on the attack and dealt him a blow that broke 2 of his heads in half. She defeated the dungeon boss, double-headed dragon. The guy thinks that she needs a prince at all. She laughed in response. The gate was protected. The beautiful prince looked at everyone with a smile, and the fallen angel waved his head. What brings the guy here? He needs to go to China, and he asks her to keep him company. Odin's test was successful. He was wondering if their taboo would work, but they managed to circumvent it with Merlin's pendant. So Lee Jun-kyung was able to infiltrate the shadowy organization that is pulling strings all over the world. He came to Asgard. Hyunkao grew up and formed a whole body. He has not yet reached the level of the sinister king of the undead army, but now he can control up to 7 skeletons, and another skull has appeared on his bracelet, which means that the soul is not active. The Muspelheim spear was restored thanks to the blacksmith, but now it has a demonic spear characteristic that consumes its own user. So Young-kyung needs to go to China, one of the most dangerous regions in the world. Due to the fact that they could not contain the huge number of gates opening everywhere, China turned into a kingdom of monsters, because it is there that a person is able to clear the black marble, in the place of the upcoming center, the impending catastrophe, the northern front. A horde of snow orcs was approaching the army. They have been defending the entrance for more than 3 hours. It was their company, a man, a guy, and a girl who could help them. But are they really going to go there? No way, the guy has to thank them for protecting their country. There's something they need to do. The warrior has certainly heard that he defeated Hercules. However, there's something else. There's a sort of barrier that people can't get through, so they can't get through anyway. The guy asked them not to worry about it. He had already found a solution. The man was always wondering how he wanted to travel without the help of Beavrest. This is a gate, literally the whole territory of China. This is a solid gate the girl will understand as soon as she sees everything with her own eyes. The man asked them to step back and reminded them that no matter what happens, he can't help them in any way. So once a month he will wait for them here if they can't get out. Then it will come back here again in a month. And so on month after month. If everything goes well inside, then the guy will be able to get out of there, and the man himself really hopes that everything will be like this. They have passed the barrier. As the guy said, he puts literally all his strength in order to save everyone he can, so the man will try to reduce their burden as much as possible. They were in a very cold place with a terrible wind. Did anyone really live here? The fact that it's colder here than he thought suggests that things are moving faster than they were in the original timeline. There were snow orcs ahead. She would deal with them. She still wanted to warm up somehow. The girl killed each of them attack by attack. Some monsters started to run. Poe was surprised because it looked like they were running away from someone. They were ice trolls. They have immunity to cold, and also high regeneration in general terms similar to Juniper. One troll is enough to defeat a B-ranked hunter. He asked the girl to be careful. They attacked, killing everyone. Something strange started to happen. There are quite a lot of strong monsters, and it also became harder to control mana, the guy said. In addition to their human-like movements and combat tactics, her words made sense. Apparently the process of being absorbed by the gate was going faster than he expected, and in the meantime, they had to move on. They were walking through a thick blizzard, and it would take them about a month to make enough headway if they were on their own 2 feet. Only if they continue traveling, which means they can't waste so much time idling around here. They need to find something to ride on. Their first departure will definitely be the Sky Lake at the top of Baektusan. They lit a fire. The guy said that he would go to investigate the situation, and soon he brought 2 deer, which they rode. They're on their way to the top now, but shouldn't it get colder as they go up? Only get hotter, and they've never encountered any monsters on their way here. The Lord of the Mountain protects her. This is not a person, to be honest, and not an animal. The hero does not even know how to call them correctly. In any case, they will soon see them for themselves. They didn't decide to leave the moose where they left off, and now they need to break through the barrier. Odin speculated that after the gate appeared, the world descended into chaos, awakening powers beyond all others. He decided to find Asgard and devote himself entirely to people. But after he began to use his powers in the name of humanity, he realized that it was only natural that those who could not use magic power would be left behind. Hunters are able to survive disasters, and are the people whose protection is their responsibility. Young-kyung went to China, a little disappointed that China did not meet his expectations. The climate conditions have changed. Monsters are raging all over the country, but this did not satisfy him. A guy who doesn't have the power of a hero and managed to defeat Hercules without it may be able to find something that he once failed. He laughed and stopped quite interestingly. The man licked his lips. He can't devour it so early. He has to enjoy it slowly, because it is the best snack to drown out his overwhelming hunger. The guys arrived at the Sky Lake where they were met by people. The girl assumed that these were hunters in the monster lands. People live. Did anyone know about this? They were survivors from the ancient lands of North Korea. People did not understand how he knew about them. He wanted to meet the Lord of the Mountain. He even knew about the King of the Mountains. Most likely he is dangerous. They attacked. The guy wanted to avoid an unnecessary fight, but it seems like he has no choice. At that moment, a little girl came out and said that the king of the mountain said to transfer the guests to him. North Korea disappeared from the face of the earth a long time ago because of failed nuclear experiments there. It became a wasteland even before the gates appeared, after which many refugees from North Korea began to move to South Korea or China. The man once again asked how they knew about them. It was too difficult a question for the guy. The girl came up to him and said, "Did he really think to behave like this with the guests of the owner of the mountain? If they know about the king, then of course they will know about them. They might be the accomplices of those bad people," the man thought. The girl told them not to take it personally a long time ago. The bad people came and tried to kill the master of the mountain. They were able to deal with them, but their people are now on pins and needles. The guy turned to the girl. What he did not want the old geezer. The girl was scared and embarrassed. The people had not seen the guests for a long time. They were not there. They noticed their clothes. Apparently they came outside, but they did not understand because they believed that the outside world had fallen. They have about 200 people, most of them hunters, people who survived in such harsh conditions. Another man blocked their path with a spear. Isn't it their custom to receive guests? The mountain master didn't tell them to personally bring them here. Even if this way the man still won't let them go to him. The girl tried to object to him, but she herself knows perfectly well what state the owner is in right now. The guy realized that something had happened to him, but his opinion still does not matter. The man stepped on the attack, calling him names. The girl stopped them. In the name of the head of the village of Chunji, she orders him to get out of the way. The man calmly obeyed. She led them to the master of the mountain through a cave, and the boy asked the girl if they knew anything about the Tangun myth. There is a forgotten folk myth called the Tangun myth, about how Hyunung descended from the mountains and discovered Korea, founded their city there. But why is it not from there? I suddenly remembered about it. The locals obviously know something about it. They approached the huge white tiger, surpassing all its military forces and knowing about it in any case. They are honored guests, and he is the protector of the mountain, the master of the mountain. There was a terrifying aura around him. The power that he used to protect the mountain would soon be gone. He was dying. So the source of his power, Mount Baektusan, was gradually being destroyed. The hero is the one who can help him, but not with him the guy would like to meet, but with the true owner of this mountain. The tiger was very angry, although he couldn't hold back the intruder. But it's not normal for the mountain master to be a dying bad person. He asked to be taken to the intruder, and then he would save the village and him. After he met with the girl, she asked him to tell who the owner of the mountain is, because he said that this is not a monster. She can think of him as a deer harnessed to a sleigh. But he is much more advanced creature. To put it simply, after absorbing the magical energy coming from the gate, their personality and appearance changed. But that doesn't explain his ability to communicate with people, and the ability to absorb such huge amounts of magic, nor his behavior. She was right even before absorbing magic power. He was different from other animals, alphas. Their body is bigger. They are stronger and smarter than other animals. Over time, they can become the main characters of legends and fairy tales. But the master of the mountain is even more special, so he has a patron. He is a hunter like them, but now he is injured by an intruder who entered Mount Baektusan. So now not only is he their target, but also the one who injured him. The girl opened another world with her power, as if to open a portal. When the guys jumped in there, she closed it, asked them to return safely. They entered a temporary gate, a sealed territory. Temporary gates are gates that appear inside other countries, such as North Korea and China, which are already such gates in themselves. So technically all the gates in them are temporary. It was terribly hot there, because just now it was cold. The guy advised to take it as hardening, so they will become stronger and more resilient. Prince Charming has blessed her with heat resistance, as expected from the hero who inherited the title of Ogre Prince Siegfried. They are not so conservative about blessings. She hopes they will bless her with cold resistance as well. They were able to defeat the monsters that got in their way. The level of power over fire was raised, and just the level 2, as he thought. The Cheonji gate with strong flames is perfect for leveling up. The girl asked what kind of child it was. She created this sealed territory, just like that. But it is correct to say that she did not seal the territory, but lured an intruder into it. This place, the center of the mountain, the place of concentration of all forces, the source of the forces of the owner of the mountain is also here. This girl, the bear from the Tangan myth, can also use this energy. She is the one who bestows this power to the mountain master. So the strongest one here is not the mountain master, but the village head, Una. It turns out that the intruder that was locked up here is even stronger. It's probably stronger than any monster they've encountered before. The girl's name is quite unique, but it wasn't her name. It was just a pseudonym. The guy replied, "This child is a hero. The world is really huge." The girl barely became a hero, and here they are everywhere they go. Cheonji was the best place for him to grow. Just like the Demon King's autobiography said, it's not easy to find a hunting ground like this. He has to become as strong as possible to be prepared for any changes in the future. The guy killed another monster, thereby increasing the level of power over fire and the level. His patron is incredible. How many blessings he bestowed on him since he grew in power so quickly. The guy thinks that Prince Charming is much better, because he becomes stronger just because of the player's ability. The fallen angel sighed with displeasure. He blessed the guy with several development points. The beautiful prince smiled gently, and the fallen angel stared at someone. The beautiful prince removed the smile from his face and lowered his gaze. They are really incredible. The girl went to the mountain master and asked how he was feeling. It was unchanged. The mountain master was dying. But because he used his powers to protect Pektusan Mountain and Chungji Village, while sealing the intruder, his life force was melting before his eyes. They were supposed to deal with it with the mountain's powers, but he was immediately injured. The mountain's master. Maybe she should take her powers back. No need to talk nonsense. They are strong, of course, but the intruder is much stronger. The owner of the mountain, why did he send them there? He couldn't see the boy's power, but he could see what was behind him, and it was the same thing he had seen behind the intruder. They saw a child in front of them. The girl was afraid. Is this kid really an intruder? She was wrong. This is not a person. You should not judge a book by its cover. The kid used a huge force. A wolf appeared in front of them. How can they defeat it? He launched an attack on the girl. Her servant protected the girl, thereby injuring himself. The girl was very angry and launched an attack on the boy. The guy decided to do it at the same time. The battle broke out. The fallen angel carefully looks at everyone with sunken eyes. Meanwhile, the evacuation of the village began. As there was an earthquake, the girl said to try to find shelter for everyone who is exhausted. A man came up to her and asked if everything was going to be all right. He didn't have to worry, even if things didn't go according to plan. She and the mountain master would deal with it, so it was best to hurry up and help with the evacuation. If they lose, then she and the mountain master will not be able to cope on their own. The fate of Chenji is in their hands, so they must return safely. The girl's servant lay exhausted, and the monster lifted the guy up with its strength and tried to kill him by squeezing. His status has appeared. The growth of magic powers is blocked. They were perfectly increasing due to the flow of mana, but its flow is still at the first level, and the power over fire also does not grow in Chenji. In order to solve the problem, the flow of mana must be increased. It was the monster that was able to boost him. He got out of the shackles. It was close. The mana flow is activated in situations on the verge of death. However, it was quite hard to feel something like this from the monsters that he met before. But as expected with this guy, everything is different, even if a little late. Mana entangles his cells inside his body, feeling like he's been reborn again. The guy charged a big fire attack into the spear and said it would hurt a little. An incredible achievement. He was able to get the skill without any help, and so he earned a huge amount of experience points for the achievement. The girl was surprised how the guy absorbs mana, as if the space around him is literally distorted out of thin air. He attacked the boy. A huge explosion thundered. He got the achievement of the Fire Lord. The level of power over fire was raised to the 10th level, and the Fire Lord transformed into a fire monarch. Out of the blazing fire came the white wolf. The guy approached him through the blazing flames. This beast can't go against its will, and all because of its origin, it was just a wounded beast. Its eyes filled with anger and pain turned into eyes full of sadness. After all, it will soon meet its master. The fallen angel watched it closely and also blessed it with bonds. The fallen angel stroked its lost child, despite its current pliability. When it was a demon that turned the world into chaos together with the Demon King, it was an ally and follower of the Demon King. And for that, in turn, he was like his own son. The Snow King, the Beast King, the Saber-Toothed God, that's all the nicknames the Danes gave him, Fenrir. The bond was turned into submission, and access to submission was open. Meanwhile, in the village, the vibration stopped. Is everything over? They came back in one piece, carrying that little intruder boy with them. The girl called the king of the mountain and did not understand what all this meant. The guy kept his promise. The tiger was angry because they did not deceive him. They said that they would kill him. There was no question of killing anyone. He only said that he would save him and the village, and this boy was no longer dangerous. He put him down on the ground, and he flashed blue, did not bow to the girl with the tiger. The boy tried to forge his name and talk. He doesn't know how. The girl didn't come up. The guy got angry, but she's not the enemy. He saw the girl's servant and ran to play with her. It's all right. They're children. Let her indulge a little. Something seems to her that it's not that. Prince Charming has turned to weeping. The fallen angel is grinning at his victory. The guy met the girl on the shore, for which he called her here, because he made a promise to the owner of the mountain that he would deal with the intruder and help with his recovery. And if he coped, he would take her away. The girl tensed up, of course. He wouldn't come for her right now, as soon as he dealt with his business in China, so she should prepare by throwing the sword into the sea. He asked her to look after him until he returned, and it would be great if she performed one of her rituals here. This is very important. He wants to give this sword to someone, going out to the people. People began to ask for forgiveness for the last time. The foreigners who got to them earlier only tried to plunder them. The guy understands everything. Everything is fine. The hero was already leaving. He didn't have much time left, but he would come back soon and pick up the girl. She didn't understand what was being said again. She didn't remember the conversation yesterday. Her side effects had increased, she would ask this mountain master. The girl said that it was time for them to move out. He asked the owner of the mountain to take care of his health, who asked him to hurry. They were walking again through the cold areas and the blizzard. The girl stopped. Her heart is somehow heavy. Leaving them all there like this, they will still return to them. She is really very compassionate. As soon as they finish with his affairs in China, they will visit them again in the village. Well, isn't he here to deal with the problems of the gate? Because there it will be much easier for them to get back by plane or ship. He performs incredible feats all the time. Defeated Hercules and tamed Fenrir. Isn't he in China to deal with the gate? He can't do it. He can't stop the gate on his own. No one in this world is able to deal with the gate in China. Well, why did they come back then? And of course they liked the mountain until it got very cold. He already said that they needed to find something to ride on. The deer were long gone. He turned to Fenrir and asked for a favor. The boy turned into a huge white wolf and they quickly rode him on. The orgies were fighting the trolls. He was wondering why they were stopping. He asked the boy to deal with them. He quickly and deftly defeated everyone. He must be hungry. In the meantime, he needs to teach Zhong Yingchang something. Whether it was his unusual strength and increasing speed. She was curious about how it worked, but she didn't ask as she thought he would tell her when the time came. She will teach her the flow of mana. Thanks to this, she will be able to become a hunter who can level up herself. The hunter is able to level up without blessings. Is this even possible? This is the secret of the guy's strength. If this is the case, then it can also become stronger. The hero said that it already has a particle of mana flow, showed it on his hand, similar to the concentration of mana. He knew that the girl was definitely a genius. She could see mana if she focused, so he meditated from time to time. To be more precise, they see and feel the flow of mana and try to accumulate it in themselves. Hey, it's hard to understand how she doesn't need it. It's not something she can understand with her mind. He would forcefully seal the flow of mana in her, but he would warn her beforehand that it would hurt like hell. The girl replied that she was not afraid. She wanted to become stronger and no longer wanted to be a burden to him. She really could endure this whole painful process. The kid was staring somewhere. There was a drake at the bottom. The hero asked if he wanted to hunt him, which he certainly did, because Fenrir's favorite food is drakes. He was not in the best condition in the mountain, and besides, he subdued him, so he is weak, and now he is even weaker. Whether or not he could handle the monster, it had to happen. He needed to understand Chap's current level of strength. He offered to hunt drakes together. The boy stepped on the attack and was able to take down the monster with various techniques. He definitely became weaker. The drake, and even so easily, well, all preparations are completed. Come to the stall, they saw the dead, the girl asked. Is the catastrophe that he spoke about true, and the whole world will end up like this? It was, but it's much worse. At least they are able to minimize damage and save a lot of people. There are many hunters and heroes who belong to organizations like Asgard. They will do everything in their power to protect themselves and survive, and they will also do everything possible. So don't worry, it's a little soothing. But the girl will also do everything in her power. The ice on the river is strong, so they can safely go on it. As soon as they cross the river, they will immediately reach their goal. Their goal is in Gandong province. They need to find someone there. But is there a survivor there and given the environment? He is sure that there is. He holds back the black marble with a stream of mana while feeling the power of the black marble getting stronger. This is his limit. They can't keep it any further. They need to cross the river, find them as quickly as possible. Once they reached a certain place, they couldn't ride any further, so they didn't need to attract too much attention. It was warmer and there were no monsters, which meant they were heading in the right direction. The boy pointed to a man in the distance who couldn't be seen because of the snow. The girl was glad that someone was there, but the guy asked her to prepare a weapon. People can't catch their eyes in such a place. It was a giant. They were able to defeat him. He appeared on the horizon like a simple man, but he acted like a starving beast. Perhaps he broke away from the group. Those who are usually expelled from the group due to weakness or illness often end up like this. This giant must be one of them, so he is weaker than the others. It's scary just to think about it. Other giants began to appear on the horizon. There were clearly more than one of them. They are not even given time to rest. They were riding ice drakes. This performance is incredible. One of the giants asked who they were and why they were hunting for this little rabble. He had an impact on the hero. He was special. Does the kid seriously want to eat a drake in such a situation? A net flew at them. The girl wanted to cut her neck, and then someone grabbed her by the shoulder. The young man did not feel any bloodlust. The giant crab said that they would go with them. He began to question them. They were not local, but from distant lands. They were captured with special ones, so there is nothing to worry about. They are different from the giants from history, unlike the record where they are described by simple monsters from legends. They are very smart. Whether they were taking them to Utgard, the giant was wondering how he knew about their city. They were going there. Again, there was no need to be afraid. They didn't intend to harm them. His name was Shachi. He is a proud warrior of the great ice giant tribe. The guy also introduced himself. Something popped up in his memory. The giant's eyes turned red, but immediately changed to a natural color. He asked if he could ask them a few questions, and if they wanted, he would let them go by themselves. It seems that the giant is hiding something, but there must still be survivors in the city of giants itself. He can swear on the honor of his name. They are free to make a choice. He will not do anything to them regardless of their decision. It looks like they'll get to their destination much easier than they planned, because that's where they're heading. They arrived at the city of giants. Shachi was greeted with joy. It felt like they were in the Middle Ages, but don't tell the girl that they have traveled through space and time. They noticed the people in the cage. Did they do something? No one understood anything, because the inside is special. How did the giant manage to grab them? Is that a werewolf? Everything was fine. They just want to visit. Howling. So he asked to get out of the way, and the guy calmed down, they say. and said to be calm, the giant asked to tell them that he had arrived. The giant entered the chieftain's presence and dragged another intruder, apparently called an enemy by Fenrir, who must have been the one he fought with before he got to the mountain. The giant bowed down to the chief. He translated the werewolves of his companions to him. It seems that he wants to stay with them. Does he mean that they were able to control the werewolf? Everything was exactly like that. The chief asked the warrior to leave the uninvited guests to go back. He warned that he had given his word war, and asked him not to cause them any harm after all. They should return home safely. He bowed again and asked to save his warrior name. They were sitting in a cage. It was closed, but the girl can easily boil them if she wants. If she does, then she is building the whole giant tribe against herself. Even if she is so confident in herself, she is still in the heart of their domain. But aren't they already in trouble no matter how he sees it? But she doesn't believe their king has good intentions for them, especially after Fenrir's reaction to him. She is sure that he feels the pressure on him. They can only not worry. If they want, they can leave this place at any time. But for now, they need to rest after such a long journey. Apparently, they are here for a long time. Before us is a city. It is in ruins. But our hero understands that in the records of the Demon King, the war with the giants was described as one of the most terrible wars. But he still did not understand why the giants are generally inferior to humans in strength. How did you manage to drive humanity into a corner in the first place? Young Kyung noticed that he was distracted. It was the little girl who brought them tea. Our protagonist noticed, after all. Do they really accept everyone in this way? How did they even deserve this? The girl was a little confused, so our protagonist said that now she can talk, because he turned off the same device thanks to his Merlin necklace. He asked the girl to speak, but as soon as she left this place, she should keep this dialogue a secret. The girl replied that she has been in this building for about a year, but others say that it is more than a year. Young Kyung asked once again, so why is there such an attitude towards them? The girl did not hesitate and replied that they were treated this way because of their strength. All giants like strong people. Because Narses recently attacked Utgard, but the child who was behind them was the culprit of the celebration. It was he who turned into a monster and killed many giants. It was the king who defeated that very one, the monster. Of course, our main character understood that for some reason Fenrir came into conflict with the giants, so he ended up on that very mountain. Our main character asked for a favor, and in return he will give a lot of sweets. But the girl said that she did not need chocolate. She asked for some iron because if she sells it, she will buy a lot of medicine for her mother. As soon as our hero heard this, he said that he would do everything. He immediately asked to find a person named Manhwa. The girl seemed to recognize him, so it was several days after that moment. During that time, Young Kyung's group did not do anything because every time at the same time they were brought it, and also from time to time they were allowed to visit the castle for a walk, and that was all. Young-in thought it was some kind of joke, because why can't they let them go at all? Our character smiled and said that due to the fact that they had such conditions, they were able to practice a little. Young-in thought that she would rather die than spend her life in a cage like this. Our main character asked not to worry because he will not let her get bored because he wanted to demonstrate his strength a little. Young-in was very satisfied after all. Did they really all level everything to the ground now? Our main protagonist noticed that kindness of Young-in because she continued to try to level everything with a smile. And she really liked this kind of occupation. Young-in immediately appeared because she just doesn't like the place where she lives. She doesn't like the king of this place. He just pisses her off. Our main character said that in fact, everything is so in order to understand what is wrong there, they actually need to arrange a show of force. Their bodies were covered in an aura, but Young Kyung suggested another round. Young-in didn't understand anything, so our character suggested that she fight seriously. Young-in hesitated for a while, so our hero thought of provoking her a little, which he did, and there was a challenge in Young-in's eyes, so even if she lost, she wouldn't give up easily. At the same time, their eyes were filled with zeal for battle. The entire ground was cracking under their feet. Young-in just wanted to destroy her opponent. Of course, as soon as it was over, we can understand that Shachi only laughed out loud because after hearing that the people he brought had destroyed half of the castle's gardens, he knew that it would be nice to see the chief's face. The king, in turn, uniting the tribes, began to change rapidly. He began to demand to be called a chief, not a king. And as soon as he started mining iron, he immediately began to gather an army. However, no one knew who the leader was going to go to war against. The pride and honor of Shachi, who fought out of noble motives, could not understand his motives. Of course, Shachi hoped that his king would choose the right opponents, but apparently that wasn't going to happen. Shachi realized that now was the time to start the plan that he had long wanted to put into practice. Young-in and a giant appeared in front of us, claiming that it was simply unbelievable to cause such a huge damage to the gardens, but they also accept their own guilt for not taking into account the rights of their guests. Young-in apologized because she didn't know how many topics were known about them, but they also had a tradition of running around the forest and training. The giant accepted this fact, so Young-in said that she was deeply sorry that they still caused such damage. They will definitely pay more attention to everything in the future, so she asked to correct her fault. She asked that she be assigned a task and compensation. The giant thought for a while, so he asked that the man tell him more information about people. Young-in was delighted. She agreed to this condition. Of course, once again, we see Young-in continuing to fight against Jun Kyung. She knew that she was losing, because our hero hits her weak points. As soon as Young Kyung wanted to launch his attack, Young-in noticed that this is the very moment when our protagonist opened up. She wanted to launch a stealth strike. but she didn't succeed because our hero was already standing behind her, meaning that he won. Young-in was a little upset, but Young-kyung said that this duel was a great one, so he asked Young-in to fulfill his request, because it was a duel of desire. We understand that, of course, Young-in will do everything he asked. As soon as the guards arrived, they noticed a strange pattern. They noticed something that Young-in it stands over the body of our main character. Many of the guards thought that Young-in was the one who brought him to this state, so they asked to call the doctors to help Young-kyung. But as soon as the doctor put our main character on the bed, he told him that he didn't have any serious injuries. Our main character understood that the medic did not fall for this performance, but the giants certainly fell for it. Our main character asked the doctor to patch him up, but noticed that he not only stopped the bleeding, but also completely healed the wounds. He thanked the doctor. Most likely, this doctor was the person that our Young-kyung wanted to meet earlier. It was a great honor for him, so he called him by his first name. The doctor was very surprised, so he asked what else was known about him. But Young-kyung said that nothing else is known. The doctor said that he probably heard about it from Seon, but this time our main character said that it wasn't true. But he thought it would be nice to get to know each other better. The doctor was interested, so he asked me to follow him. Sure enough, Young-kyung replied that he was still sick, so the doctor couldn't just leave his patient. Of course, the doctor rubbed his beard and said that he was probably still ill, and our main character hinted that the wound was not external, so it would be worth making a detailed diagnosis. The doctor had not yet examined his organs. The doctor was surprised, so as soon as he touched his hand, he said that there were no more problems. Young-kyung had definitely sensed the magic power, which only meant that there was a hunter in front of him. But didn't he get his abilities? Could it be that after checking his organs, he didn't notice anything? There can't be such a thing. Is the traitor really a grabber? Of course, we understand that it was clear from the book that Huada is one of the few survivors from China, and the one who cured many heroes and the Demon King. The Demon King, in turn, activated the mana flow in the land of the giant, and it is said that the giant experienced a mana surge at the beginning of activation. It must have been something similar to the side effect of the dragon's bloodstone, and was also able to pass with the help of a grapple. He was good enough to be called a god, so did Young-kyung come too early? Did the doctor not get his abilities? However, while he was thinking about it, he was called by Young-in, who had done everything according to plan, and was still able to become a mercenary warrior. She sat down at the table with our protagonist and started talking about how the ice giants who were calling us were building a city nearby, and were also looking for an opportunity to attack Utgard. The locals want to protect their land, but they can't, so that's why they asked them for help. Our hero knew that the number of giants was much smaller than he thought, but because of the Narses, it continues to decrease. It must be difficult for them to harm humanity. And Young-in was surprised that they asked her about the outside world, population, culture, characteristics, and armed forces. Young-kyung told her that Young-in did a good job, but he still couldn't find out anything. But he still needed to find out a little more. He said that they were to return immediately, and as soon as they found the people they had come for, but accept the offer to become a warrior. Is there even a reason why she decided to stay here? Young-in immediately replied that the giants did not oppress humans. But if humans left their Utgard, they would die. Maybe that's why they won't leave this place, because she wants to find a way to help all the giants. Young-kyung was just amazed by this, because he planned to take a few of them with him after he found the grip and immediately run away from Utgard. He said that Young-in was much kinder than him. He expressed his gratitude to her. After all, he knew that sacrificing the minority for the majority sounds great, but he almost did what he hates most. He understood that by signing a contract as a mercenary warrior, he was able to stay there with other people. As soon as Young-kyung entered the city, everyone immediately realized that this was the master of Fenrir, that he looked dangerous. This made it clear to our hero that in that city strangers are definitely not liked. They were not welcome, but even so, the same girl who was glad to see them ran out to them. She said that she was very grateful to them for helping her because her mother is much better. Jun-kyung was happy, but he was even happier when he saw the doctor in front of him. He asked about the health of our main character, so he in turn did not lie and said that he was much better. They shook hands so that the doctor even asked them to find him as soon as he was unwell. As soon as they shook hands and also parted, our protagonist clenched his fists because he again could not understand if the doctor noticed something strange in him. Was he wrong about the doctor? Young-in noticed Young-kyung's concern, but Young-kyung said that there was nothing else that could be done. Young-in even started to support him, saying that they would soon find the person they were looking for. Our character smiled and said that for now they only need to collect information, because this is their only task. Immediately, Young-kyung started going to all the people and asking them questions, but even so, even people didn't know the answer to many questions. They were constantly arguing, so time after time, our main character had to ask different questions. At one point, however, people knew the answer to one question. They knew the number of Narses, whose number exceeded the number of giants by 3 times, or even 4. The guy even said that at one point there were skirmishes between giants, and one of the leaders took a group of giants and left. They called themselves Narses, but those who remained of course died fighting against each other, or they were simply struck down by some disease. By this point, our hero realized that this was still new information about the disease. So Jun Kyung asked if there were other outsiders besides him. Of course, the resident said that there was someone in the city. Most likely it was even a demon king. The diary even said that he visited China and arrived in the City of Giants. So our protagonist will still manage to find at least some traces of that existence, since now he was in the past. The residents he asked for information from also didn't know anything for sure. They only knew that it was some couple of people that they couldn't see with their eyes. Young Kyung realized that even asking the Giants would be easier at this rate, so he left immediately. Of course, there was clearly someone in the city who was able to stop the spread of infection among the Giants, someone who is often called to the castle. Snapper was exactly what the person he was looking for was supposed to be, so he was the one he needed to ask the Giants about. He entered the castle walls, where he saw a familiar face. Of course, the man was happy to see the man who burned the castle gardens. He expressed his gratitude to our hero for helping them, even though they are not of the same species. However, he said that today he will have to go out because the attacks of Narses are becoming more frequent over and over again. Does our hero want to help them? Shachi and Jun Kyung, who left the castle to stop the Narses attack, encountered a very unusual guest, the leader of the Narses tribe, Sreem. Of course, we could tell that Shachi and Sreem knew each other, because they immediately found out about each other. Our protagonist understood that all this could be dangerous, because from the stream there was an impure aura. He was definitely strong. He was clearly on a different level. Even the level of the giant king from the castle. Shouldn't he even learn the Narse language to understand what they were saying? But as soon as he thought about it, the fallen angel gave him knowledge of their language. Our hero understood that this was a rather unexpected turn, but the conversation was already in full swing. Sreem couldn't understand why Shachi didn't want to go back on his decision at all. But Shachi just stood his ground, thinking that there was no point in listening to the traitor at all. Sreem, in turn, said that there was no point in listening to their stupid king at all, because their tribe had already fallen very low. They disgraced the warrior's name. So Sreem once again pointed out that they were not traitors. They simply considered themselves the masters of Utgard. Shachi asked him to stop talking about his leader like that, and he held out his axe, which meant only that he wanted to go to war against the Narses. Sreem also knew that it was true, because they, the Giants, decided things differently. However, I still couldn't understand. After all, did Fenrir obey people? Streema, it was all very interesting. He asked to see me next time. He would definitely wait for the next meeting, to which Shachi shouted only that he had already had enough. He already wanted to get down to business. Shachi hit his axe right on the ground. He wanted to hit Sreem, but he immediately dodged to the side and launched an attack that could definitely kill his former ally, or rather Shachi. He wanted to meet together in the future. He addressed this not only to his past ally, but also to our main character, making him a special person. Shachi's squad asked him if they wouldn't catch up with the Narses, but Shachi only replied that Sreem was with them, and they would only lose their warriors if they started a fight against them. They realized that they should avoid skirmishes against the Narses. All the Giants were very upset, but our protagonist understood that Shachi was right, because although the Giants were hostile, they still enjoyed the battle. But the fact remained that the Narses were much more dangerous and stronger than ordinary Shachi warriors. It even seemed to him that Shachi and Sreem were getting together, or best friends judging by the way they met each other. Of course, after a short time, our main character noticed a man in the snow. He could not understand, because really the Giants did not notice him. What was that man doing at all? Our hero asked Shachi what kind of person was there. But Shachi only replied that it was a hired warrior, like them, who was also in the service of Utgard. Shachi turned to the man and asked, "Is he really looking for his medicinal herbs again?" The man said it was, so Shachi offered to give Tohogo a ride, because there were still Narses walking around. The man replied that he was going to leave, but who was it that was next to Shachi? Shachi introduced our protagonist as well as a human, and he said that the person in front of them was Hwada, a doctor, and also a mercenary warrior. Our main character smiled broadly, and also realized that the person he was looking for had finally been found. Young-in, as soon as Young Kyung returned, noticed that he was very cheerful, and Young-in knew that everything was fine, so she decided to share that she was ambushed in the forest, but for some reason the Narses started running away from her. Of course, our protagonist decided to destroy her dreams, saying that he had a different picture. He said that they simply did not fight against them, but still he was able to meet the enemy leader, who was incredibly strong. But Young-in also confessed that there were also humans among the Narses that attacked her. It was all a bit of a shock to our hero, so Young-in, she started talking about how one of those people was a Chinese who was able to fend off her sword, protecting everyone as if she didn't have a two-handed sword, but just a feather. He also said that the man used the same spear as our protagonist, but it was longer and oddly shaped. Young Kyung thought it was very strange at first, but Young-in also noticed that our protagonist looks quite strange. Is there something wrong? But Jun Kyung only replied that he wanted to talk to the person Young-in was probably talking about, but he was worried that something would go wrong, so didn't she want to go with him? Of course, at that moment, Young-in wanted to go, but she knew that she couldn't understand the language, so our hero handed her Merlin's necklace, saying that it would help her understand the language that she didn't understand until then, and Merlin was sure that she could do it. Of course, we can see in front of us the same doctor who continues to treat people who were in poor condition. Next to the same old man was just Grab. Our now main character understood only that in China, all successful doctors are called Snapper, so it's understandable why he couldn't find the right person right away. He walked over to the doctor who was standing in front of him, also holding out a huge package of potions. Huada couldn't believe his eyes, but it was only thanks to them that he was able to cure all the patients. It was after this incident that Jun Kyung was able to communicate with Huada, and finally I was able to understand that I had found the very person I was looking for, because the doctor asked me to check his pulse, because he felt something strange when they first said hello. As soon as the doctor checked his hand, he thought about it and asked for forgiveness, because what he would do would be a little unpleasant. Of course, Young Kyung knew what the doctor was really doing, and he was using mana to check both his pulse and condition, but our protagonist didn't feel any discomfort. He realized that it was likely that Snapper was also studying cultivation, just like our hero. As soon as both of them sat down next to each other, our hero could not understand, because how did the person who was sitting in front of him think of the flow of mana? But Huada replied that they call it chi cultivation. Our protagonist couldn't figure out who he was talking about, so the doctor said that all the people on the Nar side knew about it. As soon as Youngin's words came into our hero's head, he asked the doctor if he noticed anything while he was checking his pulse, but the doctor only said that the blood of our main character is very thick, and the streams are strangely formed. Of course, our hero understood that the person who cured the Demon King was definitely a master of his craft. He could be trusted. So Young Kyung admitted that he had problems during the cultivation of his inner energy, a huge amount of demonic energy released by monsters. It was this that flowed through his body. He said that this demonic energy mixed with other energies of a different origin inside his body, transformed into black marble spheres. When these balls begin to release strong energy, the body experiences unbearable pain. He had no idea what kind of balls they were, but everything he put into solving this problem was useless. Wata, who heard this, became even more excited and asked if he could watch our main character again, but this time properly. He warned that this action would be very dangerous, but our protagonist only said that he was ready, he only needed the result. As soon as Snapper finished, he said that our main character held out well, even though his organs were almost bursting. Jun Kyung wondered how it went, but the doctor replied that the black spheres inside him are unique, because usually they absorb the inner life force of a person until he dies, but the spheres inside him are different. On the contrary, they stimulate the flow of mana inside him. Young Kyung was very interested, so Huata said that they didn't do much harm, but the reason why he was in pain was because he forced a change in the flow inside. Of course, this is fundamentally dangerous, because the spheres become stronger with it. So if they become stronger at some point, they will suppress it as an entity. Of course, with such mental fortitude, he is able to suppress everything. Our protagonist thought because what the doctor was talking about is not like Narses abandoned in the ice. The doctor nodded and said that the people on the Narses side were psychopaths, consumed with killing intent and cultivating inner energy. The doctor said that the black spheres are safe and also help to improve, and that was the conclusion. As soon as the doctor finished, our hero realized that most likely the Demon King was just able to find out about it before others. He began to study the cultivation of ki. Our main character started to get dressed, and also asked to talk to the doctor, who also had questions for our Jun Kyung. As soon as they sat down at the table, the first question of our protagonist was why people were so sick, but they were not even in battles. Wada said that there is a lot of energy in their land, so ordinary people just can't handle it, which is why they start to get sick. After all, with the appearance of the gate, many people began to get sick. Before China experienced Ratifikatsi, the Grip studied medicine in Europe, but returned to his homeland as soon as he found out that it would be useful. He couldn't believe that the world would do without him when there were a lot of monsters everywhere. So he asked our protagonist why he had come all this way, if the rescue team would come for him. Of course, what Young Kyung said was that no group was coming. The doctor was very upset, but our hero said that there would be no such group because it was already here. Snapper thought it wasn't a funny joke, so our character said that he had so many people besides Fenrir, or the skeleton that gave the giants a beating. The doctor couldn't understand why they had come at all. But Young Kyung interrupted him and said that he couldn't do it alone. So he asked him to tell the doctor about the people on the Narses side, because our protagonist will need their help. The doctor started shouting because Jun Kyung didn't know anything about Narses, but our hero just started smiling, because the number of surviving hunters living in Utgard is too small, and this only means that on the side of Narses majority. The doctor didn't know what to say because when he went out to collect medicinal herbs, he found out that many hunters had left Utgard. Of course, our hero understood everything that the doctor felt, so Young Kyung had one request. He wanted to study chi cultivation. After all, if he could learn it, he would be one step closer to the power of the Demon King. In front of us is a castle. The doctor has built a barrier around himself that will not allow the flow of mana to seep out. He said that no one would suspect anything. Our hero also couldn't believe that everything that was around him was what he needed for training. The doctor said that was all it took, but the giant would still be able to see it. However, as soon as our hero began to discuss how he used to work, the doctor was simply shocked, because he could actually feel everything without any technique. The doctor was absolutely delighted, because Young Kyung actually had an incredible predisposition to controlling internal energy. He couldn't even believe that such a person was standing in front of him. The doctor smiled, but said that although his technique was impressive, he thought that after listening to him, he realized that anything is possible. They will definitely be able to cope with everything. Once again, a group of people appeared in front of us, They were discussing their opponents, who they would most likely meet. They were also discussing a possible rescue group, but they still didn't think that this was the case. It was definitely some kind of devilry, because before that guy was sure of his decisions. But now he doesn't know anything. He wondered how quickly the hunters could become stronger. The bearded man said that they were making progress. Of course, the guy was not happy with this information, because everyone in his squad should definitely become stronger. He raised his sword and said that they would all cope together. This speech was so inspiring that everyone shouted and crossed their swords and spears. At the same time, we can notice that the doctor and our main character continued to study the cultivation of ki. All the energy spread through the body of our protagonist, and the doctor asked him not to be distracted, because they almost reached their goal. Our hero began to feel something. The sphere inside him began to activate, but the doctor asked him not to make any sounds. As soon as he did this, he immediately felt an incredible amount of pain. The harmful energy was simply incredible, because it not only absorbed Manhwa, but also devoured the body from the inside out. But it was impossible to stop, because if they started, they had to take responsibility for everything. They were both feeling incredibly tense, but there was a surge of energy that was felt by absolutely everyone in the area. Many people thought it was Srim, so Shachi asked all the giants to prepare for battle. His people said that the chief would not encourage this, but Shachi simply could not keep anything to himself, because he was tired of hiding in the shadows. It was they who would raise a new rebellion. Srim also noticed this energy release, but could not think that it was Shachi. Srim thought that this release was created by the head of Utgard. What was going on? Srim didn't want to do anything at first, but then he thought this was the best chance to take advantage of it. Srim announced a general fee. After a short amount of time, the two armies, as well as Fenrir, arrived at the place. Neither Shachi nor Reese understood what was going on. They were all at a loss. And Fenrir's reaction could only mean one thing. There was Zhang Kyung inside this sphere. Even though Shachi said it wasn't his doing, Srim said he didn't believe a word of it anymore. He decided that he would put an end to it today, and Shachi was ready to accept this offer. He asked all the giants to go on the attack. The battle began at the same moment, and by this time, our hero woke up inside the sphere. He looked at his doctor and noticed that he looked incredibly ill, as if he had aged several decades. Our main protagonist ran to him, or rather to his body, which collapsed at the same time. He checked the doctor's pulse and noticed that, fortunately, he's still alive. Most likely Hwada sacrificed his youth to save Jun Kyung, but of course our character won't allow it. He knew that the Demon King had saved the queen with the elixir, but Young Kyung only had one thing, the Edam apple. He took it just in case, and it just came in handy. He placed this apple on the doctor's body and also asked him to devour it. As soon as our main character stood up and started using the mana flow, a strange aura appeared around him. Behind the sphere at the same time, the battle was in full swing. Many people were dying at the hands of Chong-in, and she even ran into a man at one point, most likely one of the Narses. Young-in realized that this man was certainly stronger than the giants, but at the same time she called out to the princess and asked her to let her fight the man in front of her. Since the princess gave her permission, Young-in asked her to start already because she was also impatient. Srim and Sachi also didn't stand still all this time. Srim understood that Sachi had become stronger in all this time, but there was still a difference. Srim was still able to hit Sachi. He had recovered a little, and he knew that the difference in strength was still great, even though Shachi had trained a lot. At the same time, he started shouting to his opponent. Why did he betray his bloodline? How could he betray them? As soon as this was said, Shachi immediately launched into another round, making it clear that he was ready to start a new round. Srim, on the other hand, also gave off an aura of battle lust. He boldly answered the question of his former comrade and said that he just couldn't stand the way their king was behaving. But he was the one who destroyed everything that was worth it. Shachi was shocked, but still didn't miss the chance to land another punch. Srim, I realized that I shouldn't let myself be beaten, so I sent Shachi flying. There was all the anger in his punch, so he said that their king had killed not only his friend, but also Shachi's father. All this information once again struck the giant's heart, but they were distracted by something else entirely. They were distracted by the fact that the sphere burst behind them. There, our main character noticed that the doctor was in better shape, but still something went wrong. He thought that the apple was much more powerful than the elixir, but Jun Kyung didn't feel the flow of mana. Is it just because of our hero? After all, he will absorb the effect of Eden while collecting mana. This is probably the reason why he feels a huge surge of mana. He was sure that he would be ready to even defeat Hercules. But what are the mana flows that he feels around him? He turned his head slightly and noticed Young-in, who was greeting our main character. Of course, after a short time, the system started saying that all of his abilities had improved slightly due to the mana flow, but the fallen angel was somewhat displeased. He expressed disdain. But the news was good. Hyunmu's level was also raised. Many Narses were sure that this was their chance to attack. Srim also continued to beat up Shachi, but our hero only called Hyunmu. He asked him to take the doctor to a safe place. Of course, Hyunmu thought that he would have something more difficult to do, but he was happy to do anything he asked. And since our hero does not have to worry about the doctor, he uses all his strength that is in him at the moment. By this point, Srim and Shachi were about to finish the battle, but our protagonist jumped up, who just hit so hard that Srim flew to the side. Shachi didn't even know what to think, because how had Young Kyung become so strong since their last meeting? Our main protagonist noticed that it's not just the Narses who crave battle, not only giants, but also Fenrir. Young Kyung told Tom that he could do whatever he wanted, so at the same time, Fenrir took the form of a wolf and jumped into battle. Our main character stood for a while and looked at those people who were also part of the Narses. First of all, they asked who was standing in front of them, but our hero was not going to answer yet. He thought that all those who stood in front of him were heroes. They should not be underestimated, so he wanted to ask them first, who they are. The guy in front said he was Yubi. The given name meant nothing to our protagonist, so he asked why he had betrayed the humans. But Yubi gritted his teeth and said that it was fate. He didn't betray anyone. He went at our main character with a sword, but it didn't work out. So Jung Kyung asked how great is the good that Yubi betrayed people for. Yubi, in turn, said that Srim will help restore China. Sure enough, Jung Kyung told him that many people had helped him with this. But it was too late, Yubi, who dodged your hero's attack, teleported behind our main character, and wanted to launch an attack. After that, absolutely the rest of the squad began to drive our character into a trap. But our hero did not want to give up. Yubi, in turn, said that he would never have sided with King Utgard, because he killed countless people because of some kind of infection. There was no point in working together with such a creature at all. Of course, our protagonist did not know about this because it was available to a small number of hunters. But still, he became incredibly angry. He started talking about how Yubi said it was all for the sake of restoring China, but betrayed those people. Yubi immediately started shouting about not betraying anyone, and his allies became incredibly tense. Jung Kyung still didn't understand many things, but he asked them to attack. Shrim and Sachi faced each other again. Shrim said that at that moment his father, Ovalji, noticed that the chief was noticing something, because Loki wanted to digest the land that was under their feet in Jotunheim. Shachi couldn't believe it, because did he really want to clean up the land and make it the land of giants? Did he really want to destroy all creatures except giants? Shachi, in turn, began to scream and cry, because why is Srim only talking about this now? Why didn't he say it earlier? Srim, in turn, took the blow, saying that he was facing a warrior who was too loyal. Would such a warrior be able to betray the king if he knew that he had killed his father? Srim realized that there was no point in talking, so he hit Shachi again, saying that Shachi's body spoke for itself, so Shachi had to knock him out. Shachi fell to the ground, but Srim was approached by our protagonist, who had already dealt with those three. Srim saw it and realized that everything that was going to happen right now was going to be incredibly interesting. Srim, he knew that there was definitely an unusual person in front of him. That guy was now at the level of Loki, so at the same moment he activated every muscle in his body because only in this way can he win. But just as he was about to fight, Jung Kyung held up his hands and said that he was giving up. Everyone was shocked by what they heard, and the main character went up to Yubi and gave him elixirs. He said that there was no longer any reason to fight, since the commander of Utgard had fainted. But he also understood why the people had chosen the Narses side. He said that he was just a simple mercenary who wasn't going to participate in the battle. Srim couldn't believe it at first, but at the same time accepted the fact that Jung Kyung had given up. All the Narses were delighted. Many under Srim's command were happy, many under Nay's. But one thing was clear, so Srim asked not to kill our main character, as well as others, because there was already too much blood of the ice giants in that war. Many people who had gone over to the Narses side started introducing themselves. First, he introduced himself as Guang Wu, and then as Zhang Bi. Srim was saying that now was the time to go to Utgard. Now they would definitely kill Loki. The fallen angel made it clear that it was all funny, and our hero understood that the fallen angel was very uncomfortable. Is it because he heard about Loki? But our protagonist was distracted. It was Stream who couldn't understand why Jung Kyung retreated so abruptly in the first place. But our hero said that they are just mercenaries who need to be paid well. As soon as Srim left, Young In came up to our character and asked if he was still normal. However, Jung Kyung didn't see anything wrong with that, because he kind of immediately mentioned that he wanted to remain neutral, and they had achieved the goal that they had set for themselves when they arrived in China. Besides, that three-man squad would help people if anything happened. Young In thought for a while and realized that this was actually the case. The Narses' attack actually went well. Most of the humans lost the battle against the giants, so it was easy for the rest of us to get in. At this moment, the doctor woke up, who saw everything that was happening around him. He thought that our protagonist was a traitor. But Jung Kyung said with a calm face that he didn't understand anything, because he had previously said that they were a rescue team. The doctor couldn't believe it, so our hero asked Yubi and his squad to accompany the people of Utgard, as well as help other people. The doctor only just realized that our main character's goal was to help people. But before he left, Manhwa asked how our character was feeling. Our protagonist began to exude energy, making it clear that he was just delighted with his position. But a new building came, which consisted in getting rid of the imposter. The time to complete this task is 15 minutes. While the city was ablaze, people were already leaving this city, and Srim was also standing in front of Loki. Loki couldn't understand how such a pathetic renegade could set foot in the palace. But Srim did not respond to the words of their last king. He only said that the time of his reign had come to an end. The king pondered. He understood that he should have gotten rid of such a creature earlier, and our hero understood that the king was too calm. Despite the fact that he was facing many enemies, did he really have an ace up his sleeve? Srim and the king got into an argument about who was to blame. But the first to lose his temper was just Shreem. His body was covered with aura. But Loki just made a certain gesture with his finger, after which strange creatures began to climb everywhere. Young Kyung noticed that these were the weak-willed giants that he had met in the beginning. Loki was laughing, and Shreem couldn't believe it, because did Loki take all of them under his control? Our hero also noticed that all these giants were incredibly strong. They were all filled with the desire of the king. And finally the puzzle came together. The king sacrificed his subjects to create his own army. Loki laughed, making it clear that all this was true. He even said that no king could do without such a guard. Shreem tried to fly through the entire enemy field, aiming at Loki, but Loki simply knocked out Shreem with a single blow, and also ordered his subjects to tear their enemies apart. All the weak-willed giants immediately went into battle, but the Nar's army, which was left without a leader, could not understand what to do. As soon as they were in despair, Shreem got up. Shriman said that they should defeat the leader who had no honor left, and he asked everyone to rush into battle again. Young-in couldn't understand what was going on at all, so Jun Kyung had to explain that the king needed a personal guard, so he had to brainwash the giants. He was experimenting on his subjects, which made it clear once again that Loki is a crazy tyrant who sees people only as tools. This wasn't a giant full of honor, but a real monster. All the giants were fierce, and our main character noticed that weak-willed giants have no feelings. Loki stood off to the side and laughed. By that time, Jung Kyung's spear was completely filled with power, and his main task was to kill the king. Through the entire field, he leaped right behind Loki, who also noticed the enemy approaching. The hero jumped over him and tried to hit him. The leader was watching him. The guy's mana is stronger than the rest of them here, and decided to hit him back. The guy would not be able to return from his attack. He suppressed the release of the leader. Shachi was exhausted. He left the giants on the hero, fell to the ground without strength. The leader said that he was a weakling, because he was asking a man for a favor. When the battle is over, he will be the first to turn him into his soldier. Fenrir was also unable to defeat the leader, with 5 minutes left to complete the mission, and the fallen angel asks him to wipe this creature off the face of the earth. This is a very annoying monster. What should they do now? The girl asked. Should they just delay it for 1 minute? Delay the one who defeated Fenrir in one hit. That alone is not enough. The girl needs him. She will try to delay for an hour. Muspelheim spear has reached the mana release limit. This is not enough. The guy needs more. The limit has been exceeded. The spear leveled up due to the high temperature in the battle. This still wasn't enough, just a little more. The guy needs to finish it in one hit. The spear has reached the limit of the temperature it can hold. It's starting to collapse. At the very last moment, the guy managed to pierce the leader. The mission was completed. The fallen angel was satisfied. It was an incredible job. It couldn't be. The sun appeared in China, which disappeared back in the Ice Age. The guy got an achievement. The one who brought the sun. His connection with fire became much stronger. He received rewards for completing the mission. His stats increased significantly, and he was cured. Under the incredible light of the sun, Utgard Loki died. The king and his castle were burned to the ground and disappeared without a trace. The giants who were under the influence of the king were killed by the Narses. The hero would have called it liberation, rather than death, as the 4 chieftains gathered around the ashes of the castle. But this battle is not over yet. One of the chiefs promised Yubi to keep his promise, and Shachi allowed him to be killed. Whatever the reason, he is a traitor and has the blood of his own people on his hands. His revenge has been taken, but he hopes that the latter will spare the Nars that went with him. After Shachi met the hero, he hates him, of course not. Actually, he is grateful to him because thanks to the guy, he was able to make the right decision. He is like one of their warriors. The recovery was going smoothly, and all thanks to the hero. They did everything in their power. But ordinary people will not be able to last long on these unusable lands, and they are still considering going beyond the wall. Whether the hero will be able to help with this, of course. Yes. But he does not think that this is a good decision, so much will change soon. He doesn't think they should go over the wall, as it's a bad decision for him. He would advise everyone to settle here, because the whole world will soon become a gateway. The guy agreed to food and cold, then the young man showed something. This is a monster called Puramora. They can be used as a food source. But the taste is certainly not very good, but they grow quickly in any environment. He can fertilize them with monster bones, so they cannot worry about gold. He believes that he can help, and with the cold, the guy thanked him. Next time, they will definitely not be left in debt. An interesting person came to another chief. He asked how the new chief was doing. If he was interested in this, then it was worth asking personally about it. He does not think that the new one will be happy to see the enemy. Maybe they are enemies. But at the same time, the one who shed the blood of their people cannot become a leader. So he accepted Shachi's offer to become a leader and decided to lead the Nar. For ice giants that are very aggressive, well in battle they can only grow when they have an enemy. When monsters are just prey for them, the only ones that can be enemies are humans. Then it is precisely because of their attention to humans that there will be great losses on both sides in the future when they become enemies. Indeed, in this way they show respect to the race called humans that helped them. The reason he's here is to learn something from the giant. If that's what Loki's loft wanted, then he'll give this guy after all. He's the one who saved the giants. In the ancient language of the giants, it means the one who killed Loki. The fallen angel pursed his lips. When the name of Loki is mentioned, there is always a reaction. He would like to learn the release technique. The giant can grant this request, but I'm not sure if it's possible. Release is a technique that allows you to maximize the dormant abilities of the mana force in your body, but it requires a huge amount of it. Without the physiology of giants that have enough mana to maintain their bodies, others are unable to learn this technique. The giant was very surprised. Just like Shachi, it was a huge amount of mana. Perhaps this is the hero. He makes the girl wonder if he is really human. He is sure that he has more mana than a giant. Loki is a stupid king who used his own people in experiments to create an army. The famous trash who used the knowledge of Chinese hunters to turn giants with release into mindless killing machines. But just as he managed to get the giants to listen to his orders, he also gained complete control over them. Based on Srim and Shachi's words, the king was an amazing warrior, but not someone who would do something like that. In this case, it turns out that someone helped him. The intruders who came to the Fortress of Giants. People say that they did nothing and just left. He thought that this outsider who would appear might be the Demon King. But if it wasn't him then, could it be the Black Hood? Who is he and what does he want to achieve? Our hero was standing and looking at the mountains. A girl ran up to him and said that a festival was taking place now. Why don't they take part? Grabbing his hand, they hurried there because everyone was already waiting. Everyone sat and ate delicious food. This is real life. There are difficulties, but this is also part of life. Won't they be grateful that they managed to survive? It was a beautiful view and a celebration in a place facing the gate, which gives the guy hope whether they should paint the end of this wonderful day. The guy went upstairs. People said that this is the man who killed Loki, who defeated the Giant King. He began to use increased mana flow, increased level, and amount of mana. With his power, he was able to break through the clouds, so that the sun appeared. Everyone was shocked and very happy. The mana pool turned into a core, an incredible performance, and a weak dragon heart was formed under the effect of the dragon bloodstone. As he prepared to leave, he placed the heat he had generated in these metal structures outside the city. Using the mana input method he had learned from Park Ji-hyun, he used Merlin's necklace to cast protective magic to prevent the heat from escaping. The heat would stay there as long as the structures were there. And he really needs to go. Maybe I would like to pay him back somehow for everything he did. They will see each other again. The young man ran up to the girl. The hero who returned the sun returned. What kind of jokes are these? The guy asked. Because it's true, it was he who raised the sun together with his Tada. They really should go now, don't worry about people. He made sure that they were always warm. The girl still has a very kind soul. Fenrir had turned into a wolf, and the boy was moving forward when he came back to hope that he would become even stronger. This trip was not without adventures, but in the end everything ended well. The girl reasoned. Sitting by the fire with the guy, if the journey is always so tiring, then he would not want to participate in them again. She hadn't heard his jokes in a long time, and he liked it too, didn't he? When he asked how the training with Jun and Chan was going, she said that it was quite difficult to learn inner skills. It seems that she is beginning to understand a little about the inner skill and the flow of mana. She should hurry up. There is not much time left. Even now, while they were talking, the dragon heart next to his was charging, growing, and filling up with mana. Not only him, but everyone around him is getting stronger, which means that big changes are waiting for them soon. Even the monsters are getting stronger. The whole world is changing. The amount of mana in China is just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg. The girl turned to the young man and pointed her finger at the burning mountain. Mount Pektusan was ablaze. The city was devastated. Monsters attacked ordinary people. The defenders tried to fight back and save the lives of the people. They were able to defeat most of them. Now they just have to go down the mountain at this moment. A huge giant appeared. His amount of mana was off the scale. It seems that they will have to put their lives on the line. At this moment, Fenrir appeared, followed by the guys. The villagers thanked for the rescue. The hero asked where the head of the mountain and the girl bear were. He did not feel their presence. The girl went down to the lake to isolate Sangun. The guy's face changed, and he asked the guys to sort it out together while he left. The tiger attacked the little girl. She asked him to stop, defending against the attacks and blocking them, but she could not hold on for long. Tears appeared in her eyes. With one of his blows, he managed to throw the girl against a rock. She was badly injured. She asked to stop. He was a father who sheltered an orphan for her. She could not kill him. She'd rather fall at his hands than kill her father. And she's willing to sacrifice herself by offering to end it, because she's so tired. At this moment, our hero appeared and was able to repel the tiger's attack. He took the girl in his arms and carried her far away. She said that the man in black deeds came to Sangun, and then it happened. He remembered the man in black. Is it really him? It happened a few days ago. The king became like this after this person's visit. First, they should have subdued the Mountain King. But the girl said that they tried everything, sealed it, and even constantly removed demonic energy through exorcism. The king's energy is too strong. It will be impossible. The only way to subdue him was to kill him. The guy took out his spear and asked the girl to go rest. He had a plan. The guy attacked. He tried to defeat the tiger in different ways, but nothing worked. In such a short period of time, he became very strong. In a few days he changed, as he changed over several years. At some point, he managed to deliver a strong blow. The girl was very scared. He reassured her that he was not going to kill him. The dragon heart created by him and the dragon bloodstone are the best. Thanks to them, the Mountain King's power, magic power, is imbued with the spirit of the mountain. He feels all the magic power of the dragon bloodstone. These magical powers he plans to absorb into his body. A madness that will make the Mountain King act like a madman. But not everything goes according to plan. It's not good that the spear is slowly turning into a demonic spear. It's absorbing the life force of the Mountain King. The hero needs to focus. He can do it. He just needs to regain his vitality and energy. The frequency has been activated. He can't miss this chance. The guy managed to wound the tiger, causing it to fall to the ground. A girl ran up to the tiger. She asked him to be patient a little. She could cure him. The girl began to cry because her closest friend did not open his eyes. She started crying a lot, apologized to him for not being able to save him. When the guy showed up, it was a big relief, but it looks like he was too late. Tiger was better off, even though the young man had driven the king crazy. He was still dying. The guy asked about the man dressed in black who made him like this in the first place. Who was he and why did he meet him? Can't understand why a mythical creature like him would meet such a suspicious person like that man, and also accept that power. He will tell him about it, but first he asked about the girl. She was fine, although she was tired of worrying about him. The man treated the external damage of the Mountain King. However, he thinks that it will be difficult to do anything else, and his internal injuries are too serious, performing any other treatment will be useless, he said to the girls. Tiger realized that she was going to die soon and asked the guy about the promise that he would take the girl with him if it was still in force, since so then he leaves her in his care. Although that man in black was very sinister, he always had a rather familiar power. It didn't come to him. It was the tiger that came to the man. This man was in the Sky Lake Village. He was standing still, looking at the Sky Village. Then the mountain type slowly walked towards him. He met the man at the Sky Village, and then he didn't remember. The tiger had passed away. He couldn't remember the most important part. They wouldn't be able to find out why the Mountain King had changed, who the man was, and where he had gone. The girl was standing in front of people. She gave them two choices. They can freely choose any of them that they need. The first one is to rebuild Sky Lake Village. It will be difficult, but it is an option that will allow them to continue living in their homes. The second option is to go with them to Korea. They would need permission from the government and other associations. But safe haven will be provided. They leave in 3 days. People need to make a decision before that time. The girl turned to the hero. She continues to worry about the Mountain King. At what time he always thought of the guy as special. She asks him to allow her to visit. They went to the king. She tried to call out to him, but he did not respond. He really was an important member of her family. And sometimes a friend, also a father. The girl burst into tears. The girl thanked him for everything and said that she would never forget. Then he disappeared. The people knelt and expressed their condolences for the loss. Do they have to leave the city in ruins? In 1 day they will go back, nothing will happen. Since everyone is all gathered, the girl said. Then the children and women will get on first. The road will be cold, they will leave the mountain. Everyone should dress warmly and get on the deer. A guy came with a girl. The girl asked what it was in her hands. It was a Mountain King with him. The same thing happened as with her princess. A sponsor named Big Male placed the dead Mountain King inside as the girl's avatar. However, he was reborn, having lost many of his memories and abilities. Now they are going back to Korea. The girl thought about it for a long time. What will the hero do when he returns to Korea? There are too many things that he should take care of. He took out a very beautiful sword. It is a magical object. Its magic power is incredible. The girl did a great job on it. It is a gift for her. He should give this sword to the woman he was hiding, the girl suggested. He was surprised, but it was true. He should make this gift for the woman he was hiding. He understood the girl's reaction. She left. People approached the wall. The man said that he would open this wall once a month with Bifrost. It's already been a little more than a month. It's a waste of time to wait for him to open it next time, especially since the hero has grown much more than he expected from himself. He will be able to open this wall with Bifrost. The guy asked everyone to stay behind. He exerted all his strength, but it wasn't enough through the mana flow, if he used the dragon heart that absorbed the king's energy. On the northern front line, things have been going very slowly in the last few days. Who was it? Monsters. Since the hero went to the front line, it's just like that. It's that loser. It's probably just a coincidence, the man replied. You can never know for sure. All the islands in the North Korean region, he could very well get rid of them all. The man didn't agree with him, even for an outsider. It would probably still be too much. Other players have already tried it repeatedly in the past. The man noticed how the barrier started to change, which gave them a shock. After they arrived, the girl and the guy were having a rest. The coffee had never tasted so good before. All the people who came with them gathered in the audience, one of the men reported. He asked if he knew these people and who they were. They are citizens of North Korea who were there. He can trust you quite well. This means that all of them are hunters. The man was afraid of this. The girl asked them to wait. It would be very comfortable here from now on. Her curse should have been lifted, he thought. That terrifying energy that gave her great strength that made her look like a child was gone. The guy asked her to talk about something and told people that he would borrow her for a while. People agreed. They didn't have to come back. May's curse was gone, but I needed to check the condition of her body using the mana flow. It might take a little longer. The girl pulled her hand away, but the guy realized that she was getting weaker, and she also realized this when she tried to use her magic. She is strong when she is near a mountain, because she uses the energy of the mountain, which is why she looked like a child next to the mountain. No need to worry about how much of a hunter she is. The guy will be able to help her. But what did he want to talk to her about so much? Nothing much, but people from the government and the association will be coming for them soon. They will probably ask a lot of questions about them and the people of Sky Lake Village. Their people's villages are much stronger than everyone thought. If all their hunters were taken at once, the nation and the association would be happy to welcome them all. But only if they are trusted, there is a chance that they might just be thrown out of the city. They can even force them to sign an unfair contract with the government or an association, or with Asgard. The president of the Asgardian Association can personally take any step. He desperately needs the strength of their people. The guy is going to offer them something that will be useful for everyone, of course. It's up to them and the residents of Sky Lake Village to decide whether to accept or not. Hunter Lee Jun-kyung arrived to greet him after working in China. He hasn't seen him since the rehearsal, as he knows public opinion of the guy is very high. A hunter returning after successfully completing a dangerous mission, and even returning with survivors in North Korea, plus the fact that they are all hunters. The association will do something. The question is whether they are trustworthy. The president of the association has already made a proposal. All of us are aware that those who come from North Korea are hunters, which is why the association wants to sign a contract with them. The man is referring to a contract of magical power. This is a contract that uses magic power to enforce the contract and entails subsequent punishments, allowing them to control the other person's every move before they have already entered into such a contract with the hero. Since he brought them here on his own, he can't risk them causing trouble, which is why he made a magic power contract with all of them. And as far as we know, a person can't have multiple magic power contracts. The man will first report this to the president of the association. He has to wait for the guy for a while. He is interested in how Odin will react to this. People realize that these are really comfortable clothes. It's nice to move around in them. They only ate potatoes in the Sky Lake Village. Isn't this place where they are now like heaven? The food here is really good. While the guy and the girl were in China, it was also difficult for them to get good food. Relax like this. It's fine. But her body requires some movement. She can't wait to hunt. She really is an incredible hunter. They would be busy as soon as they returned, just like when they were busy preparing for the battle by Hercules. The guy went up the mountain. This place is really beautiful, but soon it will turn into hell. It will not be avoided, so it's worth enjoying the moment. A girl came up to him. Her name is Choi Young-seo. Well, how did she manage to hide her presence? He doesn't notice her in the slightest until she gets close. Although he can feel all the magic power in the mana flow, if she was an enemy, he would have died long ago. This is her ability, but what she came for. She was curious about his future plans because of the magic power contract. They have no choice but to follow his orders. Even so, some people are alarmed. They are going to head towards Seoul, by the way. Odin must have heard that he has made a contract with the residents of Sky Lake Village, as long as he is part of Asgard. This means that the residents of Sky Lake Village are part of the association's power. So for now, they can't interfere with his plan. But the girl wants to know what will happen. After that, he wants the people of Sky Lake Village to fulfill their own wishes. Don't worry. He won't force them to do something extreme. But since they have such power, it also means that they have equal responsibility. Whatever he wants them to do, the girl agrees and leaves. The weak dragon heart has stabilized. Right now it's wondering how strong it is now. He thinks he could even beat Hercules when he was in a frenzy. He's definitely stronger. A man came up to him and said that someone from the association had arrived. It was a man. He was definitely doing better than the guy. The young man said that the bald man, he wanted to try, so to speak. If he came back alive, he had been through a lot, so he asked to let the older one pass it past my ears at least once. He agreed, but why did he arrive so late, and what did the association say? The association is now a complete mess. Almost all of its members have returned to Korea. The words that came out of his mouth seemed much more shocking than the hero thought. A special gate. This is a sign of a cataclysm. Special gates are home to much more powerful monsters than usual, and because of this, the consequences they bring are much more serious. These gates appear not only in Korea, but also around the world. Hunters all over the world were returning to their home countries after their raids. Even one who didn't know that this was proof of a cataclysm felt that this was a serious problem and called for heroes. There was a conference being held in Asgard for a few days. Naturally, they talked about their problem too. They expected him to return, but not with an entire gold mine by his side. The hunters from Sky Lake Village are definitely worthy of being called a gold mine. This is because right now, all of these hunters can be considered a national force. But the problem is that the person who owns this gold mine is our hero. The magic power contract ultimately has only one goal: loyalty and self-control. He saved the hunters from China, where no one else goes. And now they will all be under his command. Well, this is how he lives, much more enemies. All the other powers will start to keep them in check. This is because the magic power contract and the guild are obviously two different things. The young man will have to accept this in any case. Isn't he a member of the association? This is true, but in any case, the man congratulates him on his safe return. He hugged the guy. In front of the people, he announced that this would be their last journey. It's a shame if it's a journey like this. He can repeat it even 100 times, all they do is ride and sleep, yet his body really feels refreshed. They'll be busy soon. They should rest while they can. They trust him. The bald man asked what's up with that woman. Didn't the hunters on the front line call her a goddess? He asked her not to tell him that he had come all the way to China for her. He said that it was true, but then he dismissed it with a joke. The girl came up and said that it was really a joke, he didn't come all this way here for her. Anyway, he has a lot of women that he hides here. And if this girl was one of the women that he hides, then don't tell her about it. He really has women behind outside of Korea. The guy does not understand what the girl is angry at, where this cold comes from. He can practically hear her thoughts. They arrived at the association building. He asked the girl to take care of the people because they were all speechless. The girl looked like her soul had just left her. She really grew up on Mount, probably seems to be seeing modern civilization for the first time, just like everyone else. The hero asked his partner to lead the inhabitants of the Skylake village. She will be able to follow the people with the association. Fenrir should have listened carefully to her. He was angry, but the guy quickly calmed him down. Apparently, he also feels the same way. The boy met Odin's gaze, and their gazes weren't friendly. He told Fenrir that there was something he should remember from now on. The boy was not supposed to show his teeth, in order to use his teeth if necessary. He should also learn how to hide them. One will greet the guy. He returned with a bunch of interesting things. More than 100 hunters among them, even 2 heroes of the hero class, as well as 3 more strange things. He was probably talking about those 2 hunters when he was talking about heroes class heroes. But as for the strange things he says about Fenrir and the Mountain King, then why did he say 3? The third was the hero himself. He wants to talk to him about China, and before that, they need to do something. They moved and walked me along a certain corridor. Today is the day when they are going to introduce him to Asgard. They will do it during the next conference. It seems that he is very interesting because all the heroes of the association have gathered. They were in a huge gilded building. Some of the people there had heard that today they would be introducing someone who didn't even come up with a pseudonym. What was Odin thinking, allowing such a guy to join Asgard? The people inside were discussing that the guy really got stronger quickly. He even went to China and came back. Some crazy youth. It looks like this crazy hero is coming, one of the men said. And he can feel 3 energies entering the conference room. Everyone was in shock, the same man, but the third energy of the new person was huge. How could it be so huge if it hadn't even been a year, they thought. Terrified, because this guy couldn't even come up with a pseudonym. How could he be so strong? The doors to the hall opened. Our hero introduced himself as a loser present there. The guy was waiting at the teleport. This is about the time when they should go out. When everyone moved, the teleport closed. The guy praised them for their good work, the Tiger Group. They were able to quickly deal with the gate. The citizens will feel very at ease. A group of white tigers is different from other hunters. Bad characters and skills are the best. The girl asked the question. Are there places to book exits here? She suggested that we go to the next gate right now. The guy didn't mind, but wouldn't it be better to take a short break? There was no need to worry about all this today. She didn't agree with him. Everything was still fine with them. She asked to be escorted to the next gate. In a special gate, a girl fought monsters. Prince Charming sponsored her stats. Her assistant helped her with them. A guy with ropes in his hands tried to attack a monster. The Great Doctor of the East sponsored his ability development. Our hero fought different attacks. The sky of the apocalypse allowed him to take a shaky breath. Why only he has it? He can't hate it. The level has risen. Things have calmed down because they are hunting in a higher class gate. The sponsors are definitely showing much more interest in them. It was a special gate with S-class monsters, but the guy thinks that they had more than enough with these participants. He is sure that the guys feel it too. The stronger they don't get, the more special gates will appear. The world will be filled with magic power. The cataclysm will begin. So far, the 2 of them were doing well, but they will have to work even harder. The guy started to leave. The girl asked him to wait a minute. Where is he going for some reason? It sounds like he is leaving. He was thinking about going on a short trip around the world. He warned about the cataclysm with such a serious expression, but now he suddenly remembered that he was going to travel around the world, the girl thought. Of course, he has more than enough rights to rest because rest is no less important. He is sure that if he had gone into more detail, she would have just misunderstood and continued that he was dating other girls. From now on, they guys can join the White Tiger Group. He's also going to leave Fenrir behind. He will take care of the White Tiger Group. They will be of great help in what will happen soon. The hero told everyone that this is a trip, but in fact it is his responsibility, his duty. For him, the one who knows and comes from the future must take on this responsibility. He needs to meet Odin. A few days later, he briefly borrowed the rights to use the split from Yesongu. The man asked him to use it carefully. He is surprised that one agreed to such a thing. It, all because he made a deal with him. He gave him what he loves the most. Usually one doesn't easily give the other permission to use forking, however. Because of the deal, he went for it. The terms of the deal were Man in Black. After returning from China, the young man gave Odin some information. It was separate from the survivors. There is someone named the Man in Black who makes moves, the young man said. He turned China into a wasteland and destroyed the village on the Heavenly Lake. This information was enough to stimulate Odin's search for the powerful. He said to find out the identity of this black-clad man, and Asgard would give him full support without any excuses. This meant that all of Asgard would cooperate with the outsider as much as possible. The guy was walking towards a lone knight, Lancelot, and it was an honor to meet him. This is beyond his expectations. He thought they would just send a manager from the council. The knights are also honored to meet a loser. He is one of the knights of the Round Table. To think that he met him. The Round Table Council is a secretive British organization that has a different view of the world than other organizations. Unlike the others who try to manipulate humanity to save them, the Round Table Council, the bystanders, those who hold power but still stand quietly on the sidelines, neither good nor evil. The main reason why the Round Table Council was strong was because of Merlin, who is at their center. But even excluding her from the table is still strong. It's because of the Knight Order of the Round Table Council. All the many people who make up the order are stronger than ordinary heroes. They always played an important role in the crises that occurred in England. Since Merlin was personally interested in him, everyone was interested in him. Naturally, the knight was also interested in him. His eyes were full of hostility. Most likely it was because of Merlina. The knight was famous for being in love with the head of the Round Table Council, Merlin, but Merlin did not return his love, so the relationship between the two of them was destroyed. It wasn't even that the knight was a traitor or anything. It was just that his obsession with her had gone too far. Our hero had heard that most of the problems in the Round Table Council were caused by Lancelot. The young man just wanted to keep his promise to Merlin, the knight asked. Is that what he just said? He's here to meet her on official business, and he knows he's here to direct him, but he's being pretty rude to the guy. If a knight doesn't realize that he was rude, does he even have the right to be called a knight? The knight slammed his fist on the table. How dare a brat insult him? Merlin probably sees it all. After all, inside the Round Table Council. The only place she can't see is the living quarters. A man doesn't know how high a loser's reputation is. But as a knight, he can't stand up to such disrespect. Someone shouted, "Stop, now she will appear." She told the knights that he was disrespecting her guests. Even she reproached the man for this. He challenges the guy to a duel. The woman objected. He didn't understand what he was doing, although the young man said that he could have done it. The girl was surprised. He suggested to go to the tournament hall. The knight once again did something that this time they didn't have a good match for a long time. Other knights were discussing in any case Lancelot will win. Who is his opponent, they asked. It was that loser from Asgard. We need to wait for the leaders of the Knight Order of the Dawn of the Round Table to come. One of the novice students greeted Sir Gawain. He patted him on the shoulder. Good job. He's a noble knight of the Round Table Council. The young man's weapon was also a spear, although the knight was sure that everything was different. A battle on spears between East and West would be interesting. He bowed to the other knights and thanked them for coming to watch his fight. Our hero confused as to whether a man should be a knight or a stage performer. Judging from his actions, he's clearly a stage performer, so he's not even sure if it's appropriate to address him as sir. The young man heard that in their duels, they can take the life of another person, is it true? This was the kind of duel that puts one's life at risk. He was going to show him mercy and not kill him, but he thinks that there is no reason for that. After hearing it from him, he really understands that that selfish, arrogant aristocrat, the guy with anger in his eyes, said that fake knight Lancelot. This made the knight very angry. He is known as the Lone Knight, for punching through everyone with one punch, as the rumored attack is extremely fierce. But regardless of his character, he is truly a hero, still. The hero was able to actually stop the knight with a single shot just by meeting the tip of his spear, even though Lancelot's spear was fully charged for 5 points. The man was confused. He couldn't move. That was enough, said the knight of the Round Table, Gawain. Gawain, or the Green Knight. He is known not only for his gestures, but also for his staged speech, because as soon as he awoke as a hero, he cleared all the gates like a berserker. His body was always covered in the blood of monsters, so that's why he was called the Green Knight. Of course, our hero realized that he had won the fight, so there was no reason to fight against that knight. He raised his spear, which meant the end of the battle. At this point, Gawain approached Lancelot and told him that you don't need to lose your temper like that, even if your opponent is trying to make you lose your temper. Gawain asked many people to help Lancelot, so the only thing that the knight did was agree and forgive him for his defeat. Of course, our main character understood that it is impossible to treat Gawain so easily, because most likely he generally evaluates him from the very beginning. Most likely it was, because Gawain constantly turned to our main character, realizing that he had stopped the magic attack of his subordinate Lancelot, who had never been hit like this before. Gawain realized that all the rumors that our protagonist had defeated Hercules were true. At this point, our main character met up with that girl again, and he said that this time he agreed to fight because he wanted to, but there won't be a second time. Jung Kyung understood that Merlin had complete control over the Round Table, which meant that everyone obeyed only him, so if Merlin ordered it, everyone would fight against him. Our main character thought that this was the case, but still, it was out of his best interest that he agreed to accept the fight. The girl realized that she was facing a rather interesting person who wanted to decide for herself what to do. Our protagonist scratched his chin and replied that of course he only agreed because he was proud, but it was actually a reason to just find out his strength level that he had raised while in China, and also to pay Merlin back. So if this is how the girl got what she wanted, then our hero said that even Lancelot learned something new, because even Merlin knew that Jun Kyung had learned too much, which makes it clear that Merlin only wanted to make Lancelot feel the taste of defeat. The girl once again noticed that there was a rather intelligent person standing in front of her, because she also wanted Lancelot to be defeated. She said that he was incredibly skilled, but many facts do not allow him to grow. The girl started to talk about the terms of the deal, but before she could finish, Arthur appeared, saying that he hadn't received anything yet. Our hero was asked if he kept his promise. By then, young Kyung had only taken out the sword that was named Excalibur. At first, Arthur didn't believe it, because is our protagonist joking? But the hero said that Arthur should only be angry after he gets his hands on the sword. As soon as the sword was in the hands of evil Arthur, he thought that it was just an ordinary sword filled with magic. He started shouting that he couldn't be tricked like that, but at the same time, that girl appeared behind Arthur. Merlin appeared around him, which meant that they had the real Excalibur in their hand, and the curse was dispelled. They couldn't believe it, but our hero said that he always keeps his promises. Of course, Arthur couldn't believe that he was holding the real Excalibur, so Jun Kyung said that unfortunately they were holding a fake one. Everyone was in shock, so our protagonist explained that it was a fake, made to deceive their patron Leia, the Lady of the River. He said that the patron only wants to see what he wants to see, so as long as they do what they want, everything will be fine. Merlin understood, but Arthur didn't, so she said that the Lady of the River was the same girl who told them to get Excalibur, but they didn't even know what kind of sword they were supposed to get. Of course, Merlin didn't understand how our hero even thought to do something similar to what they needed. It was all very strange. Young Kyung, on the other hand, knew that the sword of the River Lady was the same sword that had been lying at the bottom of the river for centuries, absorbing the mana of that place. So knowing this fact, he was almost able to repeat it. Arthur approached our protagonist and asked why he and Merlin were separated after all. But young Kyung replied that it was only for a while, and Merlin knew that the River Lady would soon understand that. Arthur was about to get angry, but Merlin stopped him. Our hero said that it's not a matter of time because he deceived their patron, so even if they find out, they will still miss something. So while they are sitting at the round table, the curse will be released. Even considering the fact that their patron will cast a curse on them again, they should still have some hope of getting Excalibur. Arthur kept saying that it wasn't enough, and our hero knew that he was suffering even more by having the body of a child with him. Of course, he knew that Tom didn't like anything, but young Kyung smiled and said that there was one more thing he wanted to say. He could tell them the place where the real Excalibur is located. Sometimes Hercules, who continues his hard training, tries to hurt his partner, but he does not succeed. He simply leaves traces of the defeat behind him. But his partner, of course, was able to hit him several times, so that at one point after the blow, he finally came to his senses. Sure enough, Hercules still couldn't figure out what kind of sword that guy was holding anyway. But the guy said he found it not so long ago. Hercules still didn't know what to say because as soon as that sword hit him, he couldn't control his mana. So the initiative was taken over by that guy himself, said that Hercules had grown too much, so he probably even killed him. However, as soon as Hercules thought that everything would be fine from now on, the guy said that now Athena will take on the responsibility of studying with him. Of course, Hercules couldn't have noticed Athena's presence until the boy said so. Sure enough, the guy walked up to Athena and asked her what had happened. However, she in turn replied that there was something that she would like to say. She would like to inform about our protagonist. As soon as Hercules realized that this was Jung Kyung, he immediately jumped up. Athena explained that as soon as he returned from China, he was now in the UK altogether. Of course, no one knows why he joined the round table. As soon as the boy heard about this, he instructed Athena to watch him further and also asked Hercules not to finish his training. We are again transported to our hero, who is standing next to Arthur. Arthur realized that most likely that person, according to the stories of our main character, is with Zeus. However, why would those even need such a sword if they already have the lightning of Zeus? Of course, our character smiled and asked why they only think about Zeus in this way. But still, he didn't know what to use the whole two artifacts for. Of course, the two characters who were standing opposite each other were talking in the usual disrespectful style, so Arthur just had to exhale. He realized that there was no other way to conduct a dialogue with our hero. He calmed down a bit and asked what they needed to do about Excalibur. But our protagonist said that he didn't know, because he already said where he is, and now he will leave everything else to Arthur. Arthur wanted to say something about the promise Junhyun made, but Junhyun replied that it was Arthur who made him go and find Excalibur, which would free them from the curse. So he had already done his job. He even said that they had to pay him back 2 times. Arthur was a little upset, because most likely Zeus would not just give up the sword, but our hero was sure that Merlin would solve all these cases, because she was already a smart girl. Arthur was a little cheered up, so he asked how they could help young Kyung. However, our hero said that he would only say so until Merlin herself returned. As soon as Merlin arrived, our protagonist said a very strange thing. He told them to survive. Of course, this information actually shocked the two of them, so young Kyung explained to them that they just needed to trust him and what he said, because if they did, their contract would be kept. Of course, Arthur didn't understand, and Merlin wanted an explanation. But our hero said that soon something will begin that will affect many. New gates will open with strange mana. He is even sure that they also feel it. Merlin thought for a while and said that his speculation couldn't be wrong because she also feels something strange in the UK. So even she is sure that it is because of the new gate. Of course, young Kyung confirmed her words. But what special event would happen in the future? Why would he force them to survive? But as soon as they asked this question, Jung Kyung's face changed. He said that once that gate opens, they just need to be prepared for it. Of course, after this moment, Arthur again brought our protagonist to the place where he was summoned. He said that he often trains there alone, and our hero probably does not mind training together. Young Kyung even asked that before he fought. Did Arthur fight against Zeus? Arthur started to hesitate, but still noticed a flash in the eyes of our character, and said that it happened once. It was at this point that our hero decided that it was worth making a warning strike. After that, he charged straight at Arthur with incredible speed. Arthur, in turn, thought that our hero was too slow, and our protagonist understood that this duel between the two of them was not just a test of his strength. Jung Kyung let go of his spear, and at the same time, he started to fight again. It was obvious that Arthur was having a harder time, but he still didn't give in to Jung Kyung's provocations. Our hero understood that it was impossible to lose like this. Dropping his hands, he had to try because he was going to finish everything with one blow. Arthur, in turn, noticed that our protagonist is actually going to concentrate all his power in just one spear. There was a huge explosion that grazed Arthur a little. He asked what the skill was called. Our hero, in turn, said that it was a sunny glare. So at the same time, Arthur restrained his movements. He said that Young Kyung still can't beat Zeus, but who knows? Because he might be able to one day. In the morning, while our character was sitting on the bed, Yang Moon continued to communicate with him. He said that now he was glad. Because his spear could touch the head of one of the major organizations, he actually became stronger. While he was looking at his Yang Moon bracelet, Gavain came into his room. He took Jun Kyung outside and asked if anything strange was really going to happen in England in the future, as well as to apologize once again. Of course, our main character said that he shouldn't have done it, and most likely there was a reason why he came. Gavain paused for a moment, then said that our protagonist probably fought against Arthur. So if so, would such a person want to fight against him? So as soon as this happened, our hero also did not refuse this offer. Most likely we can understand that this was the character of all proud knights. Of course, Young Kyung knew that he had come to the round table for a reason, because absolutely every moment there was useful for him, even though he had come there just to take Excalibur for himself. He fought duels almost every day, yet at one point Merlin came up to him and handed him the necklace, saying that it would be incredibly useful in the future. However, Merlin had another request. She asked to visit Inev and Neil. Of course, Young Kyung didn't understand why Inev was there, since the last time Inev was seriously injured, but Merlin said that if Inev remembered him, Inev asked to meet him again. Of course, our hero could have done as she asked, but he still had unfinished business in England, so he said he would think about it later. As soon as our protagonist came out of the round table building, Artois' voice was heard in his head. Our hero smiled because he liked that Arthur felt for him. After all this, our main character went to a certain institution, where he asked to find a certain Park Eugene. Of course, the girl thought about it and didn't say anything right away, because there was a person in front of her who definitely didn't come for money and didn't look like he bought a potion. So most likely it was a person who just came to buy something. Of course, our hero didn't come for this, so he once again asked about that person. But the girl said that she was just looking after this store, while Park asked her to keep an eye on the store. Our protagonist replied that he came at the request of her older brother. As soon as he said that, the girl only said that she had joined Olympus. Of course, this was all frustrating for our character, because the future began to change again. What happened during this time? Is it all because of him? Outside, he called a woman who was resting on a hammock. He told Young In to get ready, because they were going to Egypt. All of this was probably good news for her, and she also said that she would report it to Sungu. The latter, in turn, was driving, and he himself replied that he was in Egypt. And was it really all this trip in order to deal with the incident? Of course, Sungu said that this whole situation is quite strange, and Egypt was a rather strange city. They had to stay in the shadows, but at the same time, our hero was noticed. As soon as our protagonist was taken to a separate room, a man came to him who did not know what to do. Could you understand what the Dark Horse is doing here? However, while many people were asking about the reason, then at the same moment the group execution came in, everyone understood that Neil had started work. This group approached our hero and asked if he was a dark horse. Of course, there was also another person behind them whose name was Ye Gengate, who said that he was from Asosi, Korea, that he was very lucky to meet someone like our hero, because he is the hero of Asgard. Of course, all this made our hero worry, but Ye Gengate replied that he was hired, so there's no need to worry. Our hero smiled because he calmed down a little. He immediately asked about the situation in Egypt. Of course, Ye Gengate replied that only now all of Egypt is under the control of the Nile, and everyone also knows that the Nile now has 3 branches: Memphis, Leslie, Heliopolis. Of course, each of the branches is trying to take over each other's power. Jung Kyung thought it was all nonsense, and the mercenary said the same thing, because before Heliopolis had the greatest power, but something definitely happened. Of course, Jung Kyung remembered that Inev was in a part of Heliopolis, so what kind of case was it? The mercenary replied that he didn't know the exact details, but most likely it was related to the gate. Of course, our main character understood that most likely it was all connected with the red ore. So he asked the mercenary to meet with one beautiful mercenary, whose name is Enev. After this moment, we can see that our hero got off the plane, where he met with Young In, who was surrounded by all the people we knew. Everyone was happy to meet each other, but at one point, Jun Kyung met Baldur, one of the strongest heroes in Asgard and also Odin's right-hand man. Our hero could not understand what he was doing there, but Baldur, I didn't like this attitude of our protagonist. Why does he even make him sad? Fenrir was angry, and the others were silent, but Baldur said that he was joking, because the head sent him to help finish the expedition, and he will even work with them until our main protagonist returns. Of course, while Balder was gone, our hero realized that this trip would definitely not be pleasant. Of course, again, we see our hero sitting with a mercenary, who says that his request to meet with a hunter from the Nile was rejected, because most likely something happened there, inside. The mercenary said that like other countries, but Egypt returns its heroes to the country, and the main thing is that Seth has returned. This made our hero worry, because according to the mercenary, Seth is the strongest hunter in Egypt. This situation, of course, could not leave our hero alone, because for sure he will not be able to do anything. He even barely touched Arthur during training. Is Seth really that strong or even stronger than Arthur? Our hero asked the mercenary to continue to have contact with Inev from the Nile. The mercenary asked what Jun Kyung would do, to which he replied that for the time being he would look for a way to meet Inev on his own. At the same time, we have a familiar person in front of us who is talking to a person with one eye. One of them, in turn, said that he didn't know what kind of person he was, but that he kept getting curious again and again.
Thanks for watching. Do subscribe, guys.